I'm hoping that they will not be all our guests as well.
Benji's such a kiss ass. You had to say how wonderful the presentation was. Mine. There you go. I'll call this November 17th meeting of the Planning Commission, Design and Planning Commission meeting to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the minutes for the work session of October 6th first. I'll take a motion or amendment.
Mr. Chair, on page 2, under multifamily changes, maybe we just need to look at that a little bit more. The first sentence, the designs are based on a unit county, I guess, count. I don't know. Second line, something about any design requirements. The third line of row county. And I wasn't sure what the garage limits max of 4 fronts meant. So maybe that could just be polished up a little bit.
Have you got a suggestion or?
There is a typo, in the second line, it should be new. Instead of any of that section. Page 2, multifamily changes, second line.
Maybe that's supposed to be unit count and not county.
Probably. And then I think on the third line, row, it's probably row count. And the garage limits, I'm not exactly sure what max of 4 fronts meant. Or I don't remember what that was, but maybe that's correct as is.
Maybe even 4 doors. I think. Can't remember.
I would suggest that we just take out the detail, just say changes to row home townhouses. Say row homes, townhouses, changes overviewed, something like that. This was done from the tape.
Okay. Do you have any,
Probably couldn't hear it.
does that sound okay? Is that an agreement with the board?
Yes.
Okay. So we have an amendment to that. Do we have any other amendments? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of the minutes for the work session for October 6th, please signify by raising your right hand. And it's unanimous. Thank you. I'll now ask for a motion on the regular meeting minutes for October the 20th.
On page 3, under, it's like the second full paragraph, the numbered lines, number 1, enhance aesthetic and context, just a typo, harmony. It's missing a Y.
Okay.
Do we have something supposed to go there?
I think I understood, Ms. Anderson to state that number 1 under the second, or the first full paragraph should read, the last word should be harmony. With a
Okay.
Y,
I believe so, yes.
as opposed to harmon.
Oh, okay. Any other changes? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. And those minutes pass. Do we have any questions regarding military operations? Seeing none, we'll close that section. Before we move on to new business, I did receive some messages about wanting some public comment at the beginning of this meeting, and so I would go ahead and open it to public comment for a few minutes if anybody would like to have public comment.
On
Yeah.
anything?
They're working, we just weren't talking into them. There you go.
There you go.
We don't want anybody to really hear what we're saying.
That public comment about any section or just the beginning section?
I'll open it up for public comment on anything. I want to limit it though, because we have a pretty full agenda tonight. Sure.
Is there a sign-up sheet there?
No, I did not see one. Okay. Sorry.
Do you need a pen or
got
are you good? Okay.
You want me to do this after I do this so I don't waste
Yeah,
your time?
please, go ahead.
You have paper up there?
This is regarding the bed and breakfast in town. My name is Catherine Scarborough. I've been a homeowner at 1207 Bay Street in the historic district for over 30 years. When the bed and breakfast next door to me was originally approved, I and my neighbors were assured by the city that it would operate quietly as a small owner-occupied inn that would blend seamlessly into the residential neighborhood. We were promised that it would not host events, it would not have a liquor license or restaurant license, and the owner would live on the premises and be an integral part of our community. Unfortunately, over time, the city has allowed a gradual but dramatic transformation of our historic residential district into a de facto hotel and event zone. This creeping commercialization directly undermines the original purpose of the historic preservation, which is to protect the residential character and quality of life in all of our neighborhoods. To illustrate how incompatible a bed and breakfast operation can be in a quiet residential area, I offer the following daily experience of the B&B adjacent to my property. Activity can begin as early as 6:30 in the morning with staff arriving, carrying directly into my bedroom, the noise carrying directly into my bedroom and front porch. At 7 o'clock, the commercial kitchen is in full operation. Cooking noises and food odors drift into the front porch, the side yard, and the backyard. Between 7:30 and 8, there are frequent commercial delivery trucks and garbage trucks backing into the driveway with loud beeping, followed by unloading supplies. From approximately 9:30 to 10:30, staff are often outside the laundry area. They can be blowing the yard or smoking a cigarette, which is right adjacent to my property. From 10:30 to 11, departing guests are loading 10 vehicles, adding more traffic and noise to the neighborhood. Throughout the day, the commercial kitchen continues operating, sometimes until 5:30 in the afternoon, with persistent smells and noise audible throughout my home and yard. In the afternoon, another 10 or more guest vehicles arrive. Guests frequently consume food and alcoholic beverages on the porch, creating additional noise in what was once a peaceful residential neighborhood. For the past 25 years of bed and breakfast regulation in South Carolina, these establishments were permitted to serve beer and wine to overnight guests, no liquor licenses, no restaurant licenses, and no retail alcohol sales were allowed. Precisely because a B&B with 10 or fewer rooms is not intended to function as a bar or a restaurant. Yet we now see liquor license and restaurant operations routinely approved, representing clear mission creep. Perhaps most disruptive are the private events that can happen at a B&B. Each event brings a 3-day total disturbance of the area. The day before, you have delivery of tents, tables, chairs, flowers, porta potties, plus increased traffic. The day of the event, There are dozens of additional vehicles, large crowds, and amplified music. The day after, there's a noisy breakdown with the removal of the equipment. A bed and breakfast by its modern commercial scale and intensity is no longer a quiet homestay it was originally envisioned to be. My personal experience over the past decades demonstrate exactly why intensive commercial lodging and event operations are fundamentally incompatible with a residential neighborhood. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the committee to halt further approvals of bed and breakfast in residential historic districts and to strengthen the enforcement of existing restrictions so that our neighborhood can return to a peaceful residential character it was always intended to have. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Scarborough. Yes, please.
Good evening. My name's Wallace Scarborough. I have lived at 1207 Bay Street in Beaufort Historic Bluff neighborhood for the past 17 years. For the first 49 years of my life, I lived in Charleston residential neighborhoods and around Charleston and never once had a bed and breakfast next door. So when I moved to Beaufort, living alongside a B&B was a completely new experience for me. For the first 15 years, the arrangement worked reasonably well. As the first two owners lived on site, they cooked the breakfast, they cleaned the rooms, they managed the daily operations themselves. They were personally invested in keeping the peace because they slept in the same house where they stayed. That's how a bed and breakfast was originally intended to function in South Carolina. It was intended to function as an owner-occupied, small-scale lodging in a primary residence. Beginning in the 16th year, everything at my house changed. The current third owners do not live at the property. The house is owned by an LLC and operated as a pure commercial enterprise. The owners visit, and to my knowledge, they never spend the night. Because they are not present, they are insulated from the noise, parking congestion, late night arrivals, departures, and other disturbances that have become routine. My wife was assured years ago by the city that the B&B that was placed next to her home would fit quietly into the neighborhood. For 15 years, it did. It no longer does. Catherine has already detailed some of the specific problems, so I will not repeat them here. The deeper issue is that allowing a commercial bed and breakfast in a residential zone creates problems that grow worse over time. 28 years have now passed since the original special exemption was granted, even if one was granted, not even sure it was. Every city council member and staff person who was involved in that decision is long gone. Ownership has changed multiple times. Institution memory has faded. Rules get reinterpreted, or simply because no one remembers or even bothers to look up what the original promises were made when the bed and breakfast was instituted. At a minimum, when ownership of a bed and breakfast in a residential zone changes, the special exemption should be re-examined through the public process. Neighbors should have the opportunity to review whether new owners intend to operate the business in the same limited, owner-occupied manner that was justified with the original approval. Without that periodic review, the neighborhood is left defenseless and the use drifts further and further from its original conditions. Finally, it is my understanding that bed and breakfasts are not permitted uses in the Point neighborhood under the current T4 HN zoning regulations. If that's correct, then continued operations of businesses constitutes an illegal spot zoning. That practice has been struck down by the South Carolina courts on multiple cases. For all these reasons, I believe bed and breakfasts inns should not be allowed under any circumstance in the Beaufort's T4 HN residential zones because it simply deteriorates the quietness and the peacefulness of those neighborhoods. I thank you for your time and I appreciate you serving on a committee in the city. It certainly helps to have citizens on the council and explaining things to the council, and I appreciate your time. Take any questions if you have any.
Thank you,
Very
Mrs.
much.
Scarborough. Appreciate it. Anybody else that would like to make a public comment? Hearing none, I close public comments. We will be discussing bed and breakfast along with short-term rentals and ADUs coming up in the next few weeks and couple of months. And I believe that we will have a combined session potentially with city council and the planning commission. So stay tuned for that and we'll see where we go. So after closing that session, then I'm gonna go ahead and take us into new business. And we'll start with the Ladies Island Middle School site plan for on Cougar Drive.
Chairman, members of the board, Nick Navia, Planner One, City of Beaufort. I'll be presenting the staff report for the Ladies Island Middle School project, 30 Cougar Drive. I'm going to quickly run through our staff report first and then get into the slides that has the elevations, the renderings, and all the details for the project. I'll try to keep it brief since we do have a long meeting this evening. So the applicant is Ward Edwards Engineering with the Beaufort County School District. The address is 30 Cougar Drive. And the proposal is to build a new building for the Ladies Island Middle School on Ladies Island. It's to replace the existing facility. The proposed development will be occurring in 2 phases. This is to ensure that enrollment and attendance at the school occurs throughout the construction period. Just to get into some quick surrounding zoning, you've got to the north T3N, single family residential neighborhood. To the south, you've got county zoning. To the east is the marshes, and then to the west is also county zoning with some commercial and residential properties. As you can see on the slide there, the property is zoned institutional campus, IC. It's not in, so to hop into the background real quick, is the project is not intended to expand the current student capacity, but instead maintain it with a new enhanced facility. Project aims to provide improved learning spaces, additional on-site parking, new athletic facilities, improve traffic routing to decrease traffic congestion, and to better allow for potential future expansion and evolving curriculum needs upon full build out. So this project came to the TRC, the Technical Review Committee, 2 times. The first on February 4th of 2025, which afterwards they came to the Planning Commission on April 21st for a rezoning of T3S to IC, which is a more appropriate for a school. After that, they came back to the TRC for a meeting on September 9th, and that was more directly for this new build project. So The project complies with the 2021 Beaufort Comprehensive Plan, which is a requirement for these development design reviews. The future land use map of the comprehensive plan identifies Ladies Island Middle School parcel as institutional. The rezoning that occurred back in April was part of a step towards making the vision that the comprehensive plan has. And this rebuild will continue to accomplish the progress in making the comprehensive plan a reality. As well, the 2014 Civic Master Plan. So the Ladies Island Middle School is identified by the Civic Master Plan as one of the various elementary middle schools within the city of Beaufort. And while there is no language specific to the Ladies Island Middle School in the Civic Master Plan, the new facility aims to improve student learning conditions. So jumping into just some of the slides. So again, this is the location of the subject property. Here are the existing conditions. And so you can see all the numbers in red. And the following slides will show actual pictures of these locations just to get kind of a feel of what the site actually looks like. So these first ones are some aerial shots of the site itself. Here's some more slides just showing the current conditions of the school and the property. Some more slides. Here's another aerial view of the property. So here's the site plan for phase 1 of the Ladies Island Middle School project. This is the north end. As you can see, just underneath the track and field is where the new proposal is going to be going. This next slide shows a little bit more clear where exactly the new structure is going to be. There in the red square. Here's the south end of phase 1. Not too much is changing there except for the bus loop, which we'll get into in later slides. Here's the site plan for phase 2. Again, here you can see some added baseball fields. There's some additional parking towards the bottom and some other improvements. Here's the south end again, showing that additional parking. So here's the phase 1 car and bus loop exhibit. Again, as you can see, outlined in red is the current existing facility, with the green being the new structure. So again, during phase 1, the current school will still be operating while the new facility is being constructed. And then for phase 2, the existing facility will be demolished to make space for the parking and for the changes to the car and bus loop. We'll run through these floor plan slides pretty quick, but it's a 3-story building. This is the first floor plan. Here's the second floor plan. And then the third floor plan. This is the material legend and the exterior materials that will be used for the project. And so after receiving the application from the applicants, staff sent out some architectural comments that the applicant responded to, which is what's on the slide right now. These same comments are part of at the end of the staff report, our recommendations. So the applicant has already addressed some of them. And with these, this slide so these are the elevations, the south and west end. These were the original ones. And then after the applicant provided updated elevations addressing our comments. So if we go to the next slide, you can see here, the minor changes overall, mostly fenestration, windows. But if we just go back to the original, you can see kind of outlined there in red, some of the changes, just a bit more windows, just changing the position around a little bit. Same here with the north and east elevations. These were the original ones, and then here were the revised elevations. Again, really minor changes overall. And so here are some renderings that the applicant provided as well. So this first one is what the new facility will look like from the south view. And again, these were the original renderings. After we provided some comments, the applicant provided some revised renderings in conjunction with those revised elevations. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see, again, minor changes overall, but you can see the wall here was slightly widened from the original. And here's another view also from the south. This was the original, and then here's the revision. You can see, again, outlined in the red there, just the minor changes to the windows. There's the original, and then the revision. Here's the original, and then another revision, ground view from the southeast. Here's the revised aerial view from the southeast. This is, you can see the center courtyard there. You can see the 3 stories of the building. More aerial views. These are the renderings. Again, very similar. Another rendering. Here's the revision. And so with that, we go into the findings of fact review. Every project for development design review needs to comply with these 4 findings of fact. So the first one is if the plan is consistent with the City of Beaufort Comprehensive Plan and Civic Master Plan. Yes, kind of already went through that. That's on page 3 of the staff report. If the plan complies with all applicable requirements of this code, yes, the proposal is consistent with the institutional and campus development standards. There exists adequate infrastructure, transportation utilities to support the plan as proposed. Also, yes, the existing infrastructure will support the plan. The plan will be adding additional parking spaces and the improved bus loop to help decrease traffic congestion. And then finally, if the plan conforms to the character of the neighborhood, considering the location, type, and height of the buildings or structures, and the type and extent of landscaping on the plan. And it's also a yes. Plan, when you put all those considerations into mind, it does conform appropriately to the area. And ultimately, it'll just provide a better experience for students and families that attend the school. So with that being said, our staff recommendation is to recommend approval with the following recommendations. As previously stated, the applicant has already addressed some of these. I believe one of them, it's kind of a bit up in the air, the interpretation. I think of the 40% fenestration on one of the facades, and they're at 37%. So that's something to possibly discuss with the applicant if we want to give a waiver for that or make them require the 40% fenestration. But otherwise, that's all I have.
I have a question. On this slide, the lower picture on the top of the building, or the piece of the building that's located at the lower left, there's some kind of a fence or shielding on the top of that building. I think that's what that is. Is there going to be some kind of equipment in there, or is that just some random fence? What is that?
I'm not sure on that. I'll have to defer to the applicant to clarify what exactly that is for. Yeah.
Before we get into other questions, there was a couple things I just wanted to say that, and I'd like to cover these in our work session if we could. But, we've got some pretty massive drawings, and for the most of the, part of this, design commission, I think, if we look at half size or 11 by 17s, be a lot less expensive to print them. I think it'll give us almost all the information that we need. And I think that in our work session, we can talk about that, as well as maybe what are the necessary documents that we really want to see at each point in here. And one of the last things that I wanted to emphasize was I'd like to see our staff get a hold of the SMACNA standards, which are the standards for water infiltration, flashings and copings and things like that. And hopefully we can help our applicants adhere to those policies and procedures. And then, so with that, I'd say, I think at our work session, we should go ahead and have some pretty good open discussions about that kind of thing and those issues. So with that, I'll open it up to other questions for staff.
I just want to echo one comment the chairman made. My wife picked up this package for me from City Hall, and I've not heard the end of it since, given the mass. It weighed about as much as she does.
Yes, sir. I agree completely. I am also much more a fan of the 11 by 17 seems to kind of hit the sweet spot of, still kind of having all the information there in a much more accessible manner. So I agree. I apologize for.
But yeah,
No problem. We're kind of new as the design commission, so it works. Other questions for staff?
I was curious as to why this is a school and it's not the typical kind of thing that we look at. I was wondering why fenestration was so important for a school. Because interestingly, it says in part of your report, it says that there's a fenestration requirement for the side of the building that quote faces the street. This thing is so far from the street that you can't even see it. And I'm just wondering why. I know your answer might be it's in the code, but it just didn't seem to make any sense for a school building. There might be reasons why a school building might need to have a big solid wall in certain places.
Yes, sir. I agree. There's, as you stated, and actually if we go to one of the aerial views, I mean, to your point, we can see that it is pretty tucked away from just about everything else. As you alluded to, it's a code requirement. If we, interpret it strictly by how the letter says, we would interpret Cougar Drive and Robin Drive, I believe, as well as a street. So that's the reasoning for that. My personal 2 cents, I agree with you, but with that being said, it's just one of the code requirements in that zoning district.
Staff needs you to challenge the code, not us, not them.
Mr. Chair.
Any other questions?
A couple questions about the site, since we're got that visual up. It mentioned that part of the site is in the flood zone, the AE zone. Is the actual building?
From my understanding, the actual building is not in the flood zone. The total parcel is in 3 different flood zones.
Right, it mentions that. I just was, hoping that the building wouldn't actually be in the AE zone.
Right, yeah, from my understanding, it's not. It's mostly that eastern edge towards the marsh where it really drops down to those flood zones. But here on the western portion, they are at the X.
Okay, good,
Flood zone.
good. About, I guess, circulation, but more within the neighborhoods. Well, first question about the new Cougar Drive. Do you know what the street section is going to be there? Is that going to have sidewalks separated from the street and any facilities for biking to help, those students who might come from, let's say, across Sea Island Parkway, access the site?
Yeah, I don't think those were initially part of the submittal. Um, I'll defer to the applicant to clarify if
Okay, I think that's something to
it,
think about and,
and it's a county project as well. So
right,
there might be,
right, but
know,
maybe
requirements on
coordinating, I mean,
their
just
end.
since this
So-
is a school in the city of Beaufort. Another access from neighborhoods, Robin Drive, we've got a residential neighborhood, the forest, Sherwood Forest there to the, is that the west? And Robin Drive, does that access the site? And then we've got a neighborhood to the north, Camellia Banks, and that, they have streets that stub out adjacent to this property. Are they going to be incorporated into the site so that, again, so that students could get there without driving back onto the Sea Island Parkway and going through the line and all that?
yeah, there are no proposed connections up there to the north, with that residential neighborhood, as part of the submittal.
I wonder why though, that the neighborhood, because it's a new neighborhood and they stub out, right? We don't see it on, you don't have the GIS, but,
Who would address the access to from the neighborhoods to the property? Would that be a county issue or a city issue?
I believe that would be a county since it's, if I can pull up.
It seems rather strange to put a school in a residential area and not have access for the residents, but the children of the residents to
right, you can
get
see Robin
easy
Drive
access
there.
to easy access to the school, ride their bikes, walk.
You can see Robin Drive there to the, on this image. And at the very top, you can sort of see that Camellia Banks, there's there's a green line and I think there's somebody here who wants to say something.
Oh,
Well, we'll get to you in a second. But why don't we let the applicant address some of those issues and then we can always go back to staff if we need to.
thank you.
Any other questions?
No,
Oh,
staff.
Okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and ask the applicant to come forward and make their presentation. I would like the applicant to give me a philosophical statement as to the changes between the existing school and this plan. With the existing school being kind of spread out and tucked into the landscape as it was originally intended, and where and why we have gone to where we are now.
Good evening, Connor Blaney with Ward Edwards Engineering. We also have Barb Holler.
With Quackenbush Architects and Planners.
I couldn't make out what you said.
Barb Haller with Quackenbush Architects and Planners.
With who?
You're the architect?
Architect.
And you're the engineer?
Yeah.
sir.
And
Okay,
and if you would both sign our sheet too,
All
if
right.
we get your names right.
good.
And thank you all so much for the great presentation. Thank you all for your time. We're very excited about this project. To answer just a few questions and talk about the reasoning for the placement, one of the most difficult aspects of this project is to design it in a way that the existing school can maintain operations while the new facility is being built, and that the new facility can be open while the existing facility can be demolished and replaced with additional improvements, all while students are attending the school. So that is why we honed in on the location behind the existing school, between the existing track and the existing school. So that was the proposed placement that we were targeting for the proposed building. From there, we are working very closely with Beaufort County with the Cougar Drive realignment. The phase 2 drawings does show the realignment that the county provided us in AutoCAD, grayscaled in. They do plan to have sidewalks along that. Our plan when submitted to Planning Commission did not show the interconnections of sidewalk. However, the realigned Cougar Drive, which ties into Robin Drive, does plan to have a multi-use sidewalk pathway that the school will tie in sidewalks to enhance pedestrian access for the facility. I'll turn it over to Barb to talk about the building.
To answer your question about the fence, that is a screen. We have rooftop mechanical equipment that we didn't want visible in the exterior. So we have a couple of those screens, one there and one in the northwest area above the kitchen. In terms of Mark Cole with the district is also here. But in terms of access from the property, residential property to the north. So we've worked on many schools across the state, and security is one of the first and foremost things when you start talking about schools. So having multiple access points allows for visitors to the site, we say, kind of happen uncontrolled. And so typically in school design, you want to control the access to the school. And in particular, this would be, people accessing from the back of the school where you don't have the administration to observe what is coming and going onto the site. So we would strongly advocate against those types of connections to avoid, potential security concerns with access to the site. In terms of philosophical, that's a good one. But I will do my best to answer that. And Doug Quackenbush is on the call as well. But to kind of pick up on Connor's comment, one of the other concern, or one of the other drivers for the design of the school and location of the new school is the site's a beautiful site right by the marsh with a lot of large trees. The willow oaks are just awesome. So we're doing our best to save as many of those trees as possible. So the renderings, we actually had to remove some of the trees so you could see the building. So there are a couple very, I would say, giant oaks that are existing that line up with the entry of the school that we're saving as part of the project. The school was built, do you remember, Mark? In the 45. Yeah, it's about 45 years old, and it was not designed as a middle school when it first opened up. The population has changed a lot over the years. So this, I think their population right now is about 350. And we've designed this school to accommodate a max of 600. So one of the drivers of the design was kind of right sizing the school for the actual number of students. It's oversized right now for the number of students. And then also in the last 40 years, there's been a lot of studies done on education and how architecture can influence and help support mission of education. So, as I mentioned, security, but things like daylighting, providing students and staff daylighting. There's been a lot of studies on improved test scores. We also, in designing the new building, the footprint you can see is a lot smaller than the existing. So that also helps with stormwater around the site long term. It also allows for better security on the inside. The new floor plan has wide corridors that are long that allow for teacher or staff to come out and have security observation over the students within the school. The current school, will say, was probably great in its time. It has a lot of nooks and crannies in it that students do things they shouldn't be doing. There are a lot of exterior corridors in the existing school that have created maintenance, I would say maintenance issues over the long term. So trying to be more efficient and provide the school an more energy efficient school at the same time. Doug, is there anything you would want to add to that? I don't know if he can.
Yes, can I be heard? Can you hear me?
You're very quiet. Any other?
I'll say you did a good job, Barb.
All right, yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or?
I guess since the school has a much smaller footprint, that's why you decided to go up?
Yes, yeah.
And that made it fit so that you could build one school while keeping the other one?
Yeah, and it works well with 3 grades, 3 stories. So each of those there's only that one area that's a 3-story,
Mhm.
and each wing is a grade. So it allows the, an assistant principal on each floor allows each grade to kind of have their own community. And it allows better team teaching too. They currently have.
I have 2 comments. In your rendering, you're showing the structure being a gray finish, if you will. Kind of looks prisonish.
This is the brick.
Looks
It's
like
kind of
something
a,
out of San Quentin.
That's what school is.
it's a,
Exactly, right.
it's a sand coated brick.
Okay. All right. It's not as red school brick house is what we're not.
Correct. Trying, relating to the low country, architecture. And I think one of the other drivers for the design is, as I mentioned, the beautiful site we have. We want the building to kind of be a background to the beautiful site.
The second point I wanted to make, I went through the floor plans and there are a number of science rooms, labs, but there were no set-asides for art lab, not a lab, I guess you don't call it, art studios.
I
I didn't see that because there's a tremendous art program that goes on
Correct.
at the school and I didn't see it addressed.
Which way is floor plans? Yeah, there is a art classroom on the first floor that opens out to, it's this, how do I point? Can I point? Can you see the arrow?
No,
Can you use this thing?
just do top right, bottom left.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Color.
Color.
Right here, can you see that?
Yeah.
This is the art classroom and it
okay.
opens out onto this courtyard.
Okay.
We're also have incorporated, display areas to act as galleries, and then upstairs for the other kind of related arts, there's a band here,
Right.
and then we have chorus and then dance and drama.
I was thinking of the painting and drawing and that type of art. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Oh, with that being said, have you guys thought about, bringing some of that color to the outside?
I think we did study color on the exterior, but, ultimately we really want the building to kind of be a little more quiet and have, the exterior with the trees, the marsh be the showpiece of the site.
And those courtyards that are outside where your renderings show the kids playing soccer and those are secure areas.
They are secure.
They are.
There's a new state law requirement for recess for middle school.
Okay.
Yep. So those are secure.
I have a series of questions. First, remind me again, how many additional students are you expecting here with the new plan?
We are not expecting, and Mark can jump in, but there's not expected to be growth based on projections. But I mean, I think as everybody knows, when you build something new, you may see some growth. I think there's some private schools in the area that families are sending their kids to the private schools versus coming to the public school. But It's currently, there are, I mean, I think it's the existing school's designed for 800, original school. Because it wasn't a middle school, yep, 1,000, and they currently only have about 350 students, and we are capping at 600.
Then the second phase, does that change anything?
There's, just a, so the two phases are really with how the site's gonna function.
So the numbers are just.
Yeah, so we have planned in that an addition can be done in the future for 2 classrooms each floor. But that's, you know, if growth happens, but it's not intended to go beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've done a good and thorough job. I guess this question maybe is just more for staff because, I just checked the statute to see why we're even reviewing this, because I've been in this business for 40 years, and where I was practicing, planning commissions never had the authority over government agencies like this. The fact that it comes here to our local planning commission is so that's fine, but as a consequence of that, because the statute says that you're subject to all the regulations, zoning regulations, that would be the traffic impact study requirements as well. Now, afternoon is off peak, so that probably doesn't matter anyway. Morning is definitely peak. But you may have just answered my question, because if you're not generating any more traffic, then I would say that. But I really then just ask that maybe for when you're done for staff is, did you consider that? And in the future on these kind of applications, I think that we have to consider all the requirements of the code, including the requirements for a full traffic impact assessment. But because you're not about creating more capacity, I'm not gonna make a point of it here, but I am interested in that because I have a feeling that maybe nobody even asked.
So I'll let you go and then
Well, I
I'll
think
help.
that's a staff decision, and yes, it is an interesting thing with South Carolina. The last 2 states I've been in, our schools are exempt. But you know, they're actually reducing the density and they're basically replacing the schools. So, and we're working with the county and the county's traffic engineers with their plans. So I think the thought was, instead of the unnecessary expense, is this, and the bus lane and everything should dramatically improve traffic, that there was really no reason, since they're reducing the traffic impact on the surrounding area, to have them do a full traffic impact.
So I think that's a good answer, that
Sure.
they're not increasing capacity, but just for the future, if since this is part of our responsibility, if we do increase the impact.
Yeah, I think if they increased the impact at all, we would have them do a full TIA, but in this case, they're actually reducing their impact and working with the county to make some big changes that are an improvement, so.
Yeah, so to add on to that, we are actually close to tripling the car loop length, because that's usually where you end up with the extra cars and people come early and all that. So that's all contained on site. And we've been working with, there's a branch of the DOT that just reviews internal site circulation. And we've had probably 3 meetings with them. They haven't done their final approval of the plan, but they are agreeing with what we're showing in terms of the length of the, what we call car stacking. So it hasn't been something we haven't taken lightly, because we know that cars have an impact in terms of
And I
circulation.
appreciate that. And part of the reason I asked is because under prior regimes and prior planning commissions, and I was on one of those planning commissions prior to being appointed. We didn't ask and we didn't get them, and we ended up with traffic problems. So this commission and with the new leadership is we're just henceforth that we have standards and we're going to require them. And in this case, you didn't trigger it, so that's fine.
Sure.
I have a number of questions before I get into architecture, just on some of the other things, if you'll permit me. It appears that you have a plinth at about 14 feet for the majority of your parking out in front of the school. in your final plan. Yeah. Um, and I was wondering, what's the finished floor? I didn't find that finished floor level of the school itself.
The proposed finished floor elevation is to match that of the existing building, which I believe is 14.65.
Okay, so it's not a lot higher than that. Is there a reason you don't want to go any higher than that?
Primarily because we've studied the drainage on site and we've seen that that elevation works. And the proposed building location is in such close proximity of the existing building elevation from a constructability standpoint, it'll be easiest just to match it.
Okay. I guess you're working with staff, no. Help guide through those decisions. The entry parking road, I think it was Cougar Drive on your sheet, C6A. You have something that shows that intersection, I guess. The way that you did your circular drive previously, or the way it was set up, seemed a lot easier than this. I guess that's something you'll just clean up as part of the progression on this. You're going into a 90+ degree right-hand turn without much of a radius there.
Are you talking about this intersection here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Explain the pond's drainage. It appears to me that the ponds, the various ponds that you have here, you're doing a connection either out to the wetlands or you're connecting them back into the main pond in the center. Is that correct?
That is correct. The site has an existing wet detention pond. The city has since adopted a new stormwater ordinance that promotes alternative BMPs or stormwater practices. So we're trying to incorporate a series of bioretention and infiltration swales that interconnect both to that pond as well as can overflow to the marsh during excessive rainfall events.
Okay, but you expect that large pond to be a dry pond then?
So we're going to keep the large pond unchanged with all the proposed development and instead incorporate and add a lot of additional stormwater practices that help infiltrate and filtrate the stormwater prior to entering the existing pond. So the stormwater should operate the same as existing conditions, but a much more enhanced version with additional filtration of any pollutants, or if you use pesticides or anything prior to the marsh outfall.
Yeah, so you'll use some weirs and some things like that. So it sounds like it's going to be a wet pond.
The existing pond is wet. All proposed new ponds are going to be dry prior to discharging into the existing wet pond.
The one section that you have of the loop road on the side of the wetlands, it gets fairly low. Is that? But I couldn't see what that elevation was. You would never have water going over any section of that.
No, we've studied that with a geotechnical report. Essentially, that'll serve as a ditch beside the road. It'll be a roadside ditch. However, we've studied the elevations in which that ditch will be dry. The water table will be below the bottom of the ditch.
Okay. You show a lot of undisturbed buffer, and I have no problem with undisturbed buffer. But with all the demolition of everything that we've got going in there, you get pretty close to the end. Oh, I had another question too. You have a blue line on the drawing on one of your site plans. What is the blue line? I couldn't find what that
If it's
was.
a light teal dashed line, that is to
Yeah.
show the different flood elevations. So you can see the site, you have a flood zone, and then you hit a different flood elevation as the
Okay.
elevations increase across the site.
Yeah. We've had a project that went through called Pine Pine Island, which has been turned down 100 times in the last, I don't know how many years. But they did have a really nice landscaping plan for coming up against the water. And I would like you to talk to the staff, work with the staff, see if you can get something on that. Because what it does is it adds to undisturbed vegetation and adds lower vegetation that will help when you're coming up against our wetlands like that. I think that could be a real asset. Is your field house 2 stories?
One story.
You're not going to be able to really see out into the baseball fields very well.
The field house is, only has restrooms, a small concession and some storage.
Okay, so you won't have, you're not going to be doing public baseball games that you're broadcasting or doing anything like
It's
that.
middle school. It's a little bit less.
Okay.
They're not pros yet.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've designed a lot of schools and prisons, so just background, I'm just trying to,
Again, they're maybe the same, huh?
and there's
Very
a
similar.
lot of similarities there. Security systems and all that sort of stuff. In your kitchen area, I didn't see a trash room. I don't know if you missed it or not, but usually you need to have that trash room separated from incoming clean goods and materials, foodstuffs. Something for you to look at,
Okay.
especially if you have a trash compactor out there for all the garbage that you're taking out. Going back to security, Buford's great, and we haven't had to have the problems that a lot of other schools have. And I've designed a lot of security systems, and I'd ask you to take another look at your main entryway, which is where most of the people are coming in. I'm not sure if you have the ability to put a security system in place there appropriately.
Yeah, so we have this little room right here is a secure vestibule. So you have to be buzzed to actually get into that room.
Okay,
And then the room right next door is the waiting with a reception, and then you actually have to get buzzed into the waiting room as well. And then this door here, out into the main corridor, and the door back into the admin area, those are also secured. So if you're in that waiting room, you still can't get out unless someone lets you out.
okay.
Yeah.
But from the standpoint of magnetometers and that kind of thing, and
I don't think to my knowledge, the district is not using those in middle schools right now.
The district's just purchased those mobile, and they plan to relocate them at different schools on those.
I really think you need to take a look at that because they take a lot more space than you think they do. And if you're designing it now, it might be a good time to make sure that you have the ability to put those magnetometers in there along with the security people and stations that would go along with it. And hopefully we will never need them in Buford, but
Sure.
it might be a good idea to do that. I know that you haven't worked out a lot of the details. I mentioned SMACNA, and I would really like to see you make sure that you have the SMACNA standards incorporated. Your flashings now are going underground and doing
Yeah, we have.
different
we
things
have it
with
in that
copings
office.
and that. And I know you haven't even got anything on some of the sections, so that's fine. But please do that and get your through wall weeps in there so that we don't get water behind the walls. Be real helpful for us in another 10 or 20 years. We get a lot of water down here, especially on the roofs. I'll go back to the architecture now and, the canopies. I didn't see any details on the canopies at all. Either the unsupported or the supported canopies. But it would have been nice to have a little bit more of low country architecture appeal to this. I understand exactly why you have designed it the way you have in terms of the floor plans, the compactness of it, and all of that. Your fenestration, I think, is great. I think I like the fenestration. You got plenty of light coming into the building, into the facility. But the things that I find that I'd like to see more of, or something a little bit different, is if we stay with I'm not a big fan of gray brick, either, but we've worked with staff and whatever you're picking, I'll let that be staff. But I'd rather see something on the facility that has maybe a little more detail in the brick. Right now, you have very, very little detail. You have a base detail at the brick when you have some soldier courses. Other than that, you're kind of stacked brick. Maybe a little more detail would help break that larger mass up a little bit. And Benji mentioned the canopies as well. I think the canopies could be a huge source of defining entry a little bit better. And maybe part of that might be color, part of it might be design. Right now, they're just kind of there and happening. So those are my comments, and I appreciate your listening.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the board like to say anything?
I just have a follow-up to your comments about security. Is there a plan to have video surveillance ability worked into this? And who watches that, and where are they watching it from? Is there like a control center or something where someone would be keeping an eye on camera activity?
The current district standard is they do not have 24-hour monitoring. It's there pretty much for after the fact. So we need to go back and look at it.
So nobody's monitoring it in real time, is that correct? Okay.
State your name for the record for us.
Mark Cole, project manager for Beaufort County School District.
Because I was just thinking, all this buzzing in and buzzing out is a good idea for security, but there's certain times where you're probably not going to be buzzing people because the doors are open, students are going in, and that is that's a risky time for people to access premises, because it's hard to check, the rush of students coming in, because they're all doing it in a, 10, 15-minute period. And maybe some of them have parents coming in. And so, that's a vulnerable time. And additional video surveillance, if possible, and if permitted, might be of help in terms of keeping an eye on things at the beginning and the end of the day or lunchtime, that sort of thing.
And just to maybe reiterate the fact that these schools do have a safety officer. And if they find that a school is sort of has the higher risk, those officers have a spot in the school where they can go and they can bring up these cameras real time and watch them. So,
Okay.
It's an option. It's just not directed 24 hours a day.
Is there an office for that police officer?
Yes. And I think it's on the main corridor, but we've got it right up near the front. There's
Yeah.
a SRO.
It's right,
office.
it's right here. So kind of right in the center so they can step out and see to both ends and see a lot.
So just an idea for facility this, you know, to have two stations where it would be, you know, in the security officer's office, that's good. But also in the main office, in the admin office, so that other staff would have the ability to do that in case the security officer is engaged or, God forbid, you know, disabled in some way.
And maybe the simplest way to say it is it's all an internet-based system. So with the right credentials on the right computer, you can observe any of these schools from virtually anywhere on the internet.
But if nobody's observing them in real time, particularly at critical moments, that, you know, that's a flaw that possibly could be worked around, especially since it's internet-based and you can give credentials to, you know, somebody in the office or even teachers. You know, that I know that, you know, having worked in various types of buildings over the years, there are apps available where you can give those kind of privileges to, you know, leadership, and people use it. It's a thought.
Mark, who do you work for, just if you don't mind?
I work for Turner and Townsend. We're a consultant to the school district.
Thank you.
I kind of want to backtrack a little bit on this comment, just because it's kind of in my mind. You mentioned not connecting to the northern neighborhood for security reasons. Is there a way to connect just like a pedestrian access? Would that be a potential option? So for example, because I'm just imagining myself, like, if I was in middle school, you know, I was looking at Google Earth, I'd have to go bike all the way out to Sam's Point where cars are speeding all the time. And I think a simple pedestrian access, maybe along the marsh and then towards the front, would be kind of a pretty cool commute to school. So just a thought.
We can study that and look at it.
Do you know if anybody rides a bike to the school now?
Rides a bike.
To the school now?
We did ask that question and I think the principal said there's maybe about 10, but we didn't clarify from what direction they are coming. And I think as Connor mentioned, the new Cougar Drive realignment on the right side. So the school side has a multi-use lane, which is for biking and walking. So we're connecting to that to extend it to the front of the school and providing some bike parking.
Other questions from the board?
One other question about the entryways. So am I correct in understanding that the main entrance to the school is down, yeah, where your cursor is, down on the bottom? Are there any secondary entrances to the school? And if so, are they always open? Do they need to be buzzed? What is the protocol with those?
I'll start and let Mark kind of fill in. So that is, that's the gym entrance. So if there's an event that's happening off after hours, the focus can come through those doors and the rest of the school can be shut down from that aspect. But it varies from principal to principal on how they run schools in terms of sometimes they want the kids riding the buses come in a separate entrance and the ones being dropped off by cars in a different entrance just so they can control the population. So it gives you that flexibility. They may take them into either the gym or up to the cafeteria as a holding place before school starts. Sometimes they serve breakfast to them in the dining. So I think when school starts, those doors have the same credentials, card reader required, and so they would be locked typically. And those are controlled automatically for when school, you know, again, depending on how, the principal wants to run the bus drop off and car drop off.
And so, there's no separate staff, entrance anywhere?
No, they're
Okay.
parking out.
And
front,
does
yeah.
staff have like fobs? Yeah. Are entries and exits recorded in your security system?
Yes.
Okay, so you know who's in the building and
Hard
who's not.
access is recorded
Okay.
device, yes.
And all the other doors around the building needed for egress or, you know, even for access to the courtyards, have card readers on them too, so go out, play, you come back in.
And so in the event of some kind of catastrophic fire or something like that, do all the exits like open, you know, does the fire department like control that somehow?
So
or-
exits are always open, so in any kind that they have to be by code, you, very rarely can you have an exit that's a controlled exit. So if anything happens, you can always get out. There's what's called a Knox box at the front of the school that has the key for the, if there's an event that happens, an emergency, event, they have the key to that box and then they can get in.
So a student in a courtyard, even though it's secure from the inside, could open a door to a stranger and let them into that courtyard?
They could
Yes.
do that. Yeah. Which is, again, another reason to have controlled access to the campus. There's a fence along the back. You don't know, you know, who's coming from that direction.
But you said the courtyards were secure areas.
They're secure in the aspect of, just like any door, if somebody opens the door, anybody can get in. So, yeah, so it's like a gate, but it is secure to the degree that you're relying on somebody from not opening.
And does every door have a video camera on it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
including like those courtyard doors and so
Yes.
forth?
The standard is to cover 100% of the perimeter of the building via cameras.
Okay,
And we do addition to that, but that's the minimum requirements.
Thank you very much. We're gonna let the public have a chance to have any comments, and then you'll be able to rebut after the public. And I think maybe doing something to the canopy at the entry may help the entry stand out a little bit more too. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it to the public for comments. Please come forward, state your name, address for the record, and try and keep your comments to about 2 minutes. Don't everybody jump up at once.
Hi, I'm Barbara Ryman. I live at 22 Basin Trail Street. I'm curious as to what the buffer zone will be between the property line, because it doesn't show on the maps, and Basin Trail Street. But I have a whole lot more questions, but I'm curious about that one first.
You'll put that plan up there so we can see what it's talking about. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, so the blue line, that's like our backyard. I'm just curious, I think when you're going to put in the ball field to the south or east, I don't know if it's east-west, I don't know, below the track, you're putting new ball field in there, right? That's a new ball field, is
It
that
will-
right?
It'll be to the right of the track.
I'm sorry?
It will be to the right of where the track is.
Right, right. So there's a lot of foliage there now, a whole lot, where we don't see anything. We barely see the track. How much of a buffer are you leaving there for trees?
Yeah, there's.
You know what I'm talking
Yep,
about right there? Yep.
So there's an existing ball field there. But we actually, think this might be a slightly outdated plan. We did study trying to maintain a healthy buffer there, so we are reducing the size of the baseball field from a 300-foot outfield to a 250-foot outfield, because 300 was real close to the edge there, so.
So this is a new ball field, the one down here?
Yes,
This-
that
So
one's-
that one's
It's
existing?
existing, but we're making it playable.
Okay. And my second question would be, you're tearing down the existing building. What's going to go there when it's torn down?
So, it's primarily where the new parking lot's gonna be.
Parking lot.
Yep.
Okay. And my third question would have to do with the height, I apologize because I haven't been involved in this earlier. The height is 3 stories.
One portion of the building is 3 stories.
Yeah, it was hard to tell which portion that is. Is it the one to the,
Well, it's the one in the back by the, track. And it's a
Okay.
smaller area.
right? So the thought about going higher up in residential areas, I know this is a school, existing school, but I'm just curious, was there any thought to maybe sticking to 2 stories?
So I can-
Sorry.
Yep, you're fine. So, we studied it, the constraints of trying to build a new school, between the track and the existing school just prevented us from having more area to keep it at two floors. It is, just doing some quick math, it's about 43, 44 feet high on that back side. But it's, we're keeping it as low as we can.
So just to clarify, there's 2 stages. One is to build a new building, and then the second is to tear down the old building. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public session. Would the applicant like to say anything else? Okay, I'll close that and I'm going to turn it over to the board for discussion and or a motion.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, what I see sort of the questions and comments falling into 2 categories. One, staff report had 7 different recommendations, and some of those I understand they've done. So if we had a motion that included conditions, we don't have to include them all verbatim, just those that haven't been addressed, I guess. So you call them recommendations, if we don't condition the approval on them, then they can do what they want. And so I don't know, let me start by asking just a question of you all. Are the things that you call recommendations important enough that you, as staff, would like to see them as a condition of the approval? Or are you just suggesting if they want to follow your advice, fine, and if they don't? Question before I just continue for a moment.
The only one that'd have to be a condition would be number 5 with the 40% fenestration on the first floor wall area. Since they're currently at 37%. That would, if y'all as a board are good with that,
The 15% on upper floors?
15%
Yeah.
that they are, and they're meeting that.
Oh, so that one they're meeting. So it's the 40% is one that you just say that's a code requirement they'd have to do anyway, but if you wanted that as a condition of approval, that.
Yeah, but in the code, you're allowed a 10%. The planning commission is allowed to change that by 10%. So you would need to either make that a condition or give them a waiver.
So,
No, let me continue. So I just, 1 second before. You're saying 40% is the requirement, but we could go down from that
You could go down to 30%.
down to 30.
But I
then
think
as
you
to
need
the-
to make a.
Yeah.
You need to make that as a condition,
Okay.
waiver a condition.
And then the other ones, which ones of the other ones
I mean, they're all,
is important enough to be as a condition if we were to consider that?
I think they're all kind of more just design recommendation.
If they want to do it, fine. If they
They're
don't,
not critical to the
not critical.
approval. Yeah.
So then my other question is not really for you all, but then for the chairman particularly, or for Commissioner Murillo or anyone who had something very specific on design. Are you all thinking that some of the things that you were asking should be requirements of the approval, or are you just saying that if they want to follow them, fine? Because I think that's always important, because in the end, recommendations are fine, but if we think they're gonna follow them, they don't have to, So it really comes down to which ones we want as conditions in the final approval. That's really the thing, because they heard the recommendation. So that comes down to any of you that had those. And that, I think, includes the connection to the adjoining community, which I think, I think that having, where kids can walk to school, bike to school is about as important as things get in life when you're designing school projects, I mean, that's how a lot of us, got to school when we were growing up.
I think studying, those access points for pedestrians and bikes, should be something that we might want to condition. My comments, I would like the architects to strongly, take a look at, those recommendations, but I don't think I'd make them conditional at this point.
Okay.
Anybody else from the board?
Yeah, I just had a follow-up to Bill's question to Kurt about the fenestration. So code says there can be a 10% departure from the fenestration requirement, correct?
That's right.
And that's like a total 10%, or is that 10% of 40%?
It's 10% of the fenestration, so.
Okay, so it can go down to 30. And right now did I hear you say they are at 37%?
That's right.
Okay. And the only other comment I have is,
And we would support that because, it's not facing a street. I think that was, this is kind of tucked back. So, these are urban standards that are, maybe not as necessary for this. It's more institutional.
We had the report, they're really meeting it anyway, because.
Well, it's a requirement for the code. It's
But
just,
we have to say something like, I don't know that we have specific waiver language in the code. You're just saying a departure.
it's in the code. You can grant a waiver up to 10% of fenestration.
That does say specific.
So, I think if you have a reasoning, that would be the reasoning I would suggest, is that it is tucked quite a bit back. It's a campus setting instead of a street setting.
I had a couple more comments.
I'm fine with 37%.
Yeah, as far as the exterior brick, I personally think it's beautiful, and it achieves the goal of blending that school into a beautiful March site, as the architect had indicated that was kind of what they were trying to do. Color is good. There's plenty of room for color on the inside of the school. And also, maybe fancy up those canopies a little bit, but I like the idea of blending it into the beautiful Low Country Marsh site. And I think the choice of materials is excellent for that. And as far as the community access, other access points, to me, I think the primary consideration must be the security of the site in the world we live in today, as opposed to a dream of the good old days when we all grew up and could walk to school in a different time, in a different world. I think they could still walk to school or ride their bike to school. They just have to go around a little bit if that's what they want to do. But 10 children out of student population of 350, that's not a lot of bikers or walkers. And we've all seen the lines of the parents lining up around all of our schools. Kids don't walk to school these days. It's a different world. And, it's too bad, but I think that is the reality that we live with. And also there's bus service for a lot of those kids. So I think security needs to trump dreams of walking to school.
Anybody else from the board?
Mike, you brought up the exactness standards that you want to include in the design? Or do you want to have it considered or recommended, or what do we want to do?
No, those are just recommendations, SMACNA standards, but
Okay. And in respect to the canopy, again, that's a recommendation, not a condition.
I think those are recommendations at this point.
What about the trash room? That was not on the design.
I think they're gonna have to do that by code.
And, well,
I have two last questions for the applicant. Has the students and the teachers, have they seen the design? And the second question is did they love it?
A very good question. Thanks for asking. Yes, we have had multiple meetings with a core leadership team in addition to community. So we had community outreach opportunities. I think the staff is very excited. The students are excited, except some of them are sad that they will not be able to go to school in the new building.
Thank you.
So I'm open for a motion.
Kind of hard to make them tell at this point unless maybe, Mr. Chairman, I'm just thinking if you poll people to see if they have any conditions, because I could make a motion, but I don't know if what people are thinking of all the things they mentioned. For example, down the line here, some people had some things. Does anybody have any conditions they want to add to a motion that would be made?
It's not necessarily a condition. I would just say, I would, if it's necessary to be included, the waiver for the 37% fenestration. That's the only thing. That's it.
For me, I'd like to see the pedestrian access study as a condition.
Well, I think they've already done that. I think they've
Have you
already.
guys done it from the north side?
We haven't done it at that, but.
But even if they did, it sounds like that from a security standpoint, they are not going to be able to let people just walk in on the campus from any direction. Everybody's going to have to come in that front door.
I will say that there's a PTO project, to do a walk along the marsh. There's an existing walking area there. So I think our hope is, that would be continued up in the future. It's just not in the budget for this project to make that connectivity. So that might be something that happens in the future, and it would still allow some connectivity, but it would still be pretty far away from, basically coming in the back door, so to speak, from a security standpoint.
One other question, are the ball fields, the football field and the two baseball fields, are they open to kids coming in and playing?
No, they are not.
There's no way that any of the local population, any kids can go over there and play on the ball field?
I think again, it's a security
Are there
functionality.
fences around the entire facility?
They
There are,
don't allow that on any of the fields in the city.
Kids cannot.
No.
Oh, okay, well, I'm table that question.
So I can poll the board about the pedestrian access from the residential area onto the campus. How many feel that should be a condition of
Are you,
Well, I think that.
you talking about the north side?
Mm.
The north side?
And the,
yes,
and the west side, Robin Drive.
yeah, it's
I agree.
so maybe I could ask for a show of hands of anybody that feels like that should be a condition.
Well, I think that Benji was just suggesting we study it anyway, so. I'm
Well,
prepared to make a motion on
study.
that. I mean, why don't I make a motion, then we can see if anybody wants to amend it, how about just move
Okay.
it along, so we got a big case. I'll make, I move that we approve this site plan based on the staff analysis, the staff report and staff analysis, including the findings of fact of the 4 major items that we are supposed to address. And that it will include a waiver down to 37% for the fenestration requirement of 40%. And that we have a condition that the school board study the issue of pedestrian access with recommendation to us that they try to include that, but it'll be their final determination. That's my motion. If there's a second, then I guess people can ask me if I would do a friendly amendment with any other conditions.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I would like to propose a friendly amendment. Asking them to study something they've already studied and given us the results. I don't see what is value added in a decision with that. And I don't know that we never did poll the whole board as to who thinks that's a good idea. I do not think it's a good idea. So I would ask you to remove that last condition of study.
Okay,
Let me just say this, it's not a big deal to me, it's just, I think that connectivity and sidewalk access is, we've made that imperative and important in every project of every kind that we consider, and that's all I'm just saying is I think we need to highlight that as something important. And it leaves it up to them. I would have preferred that we actually have an actual condition requiring it. I'm just saying just to study it.
Well, they've told us they have sidewalks and they've told us they've studied it. And they told us what the reason is for not having.
yeah, well, I'm gonna call it to the board. I'll ask for a vote
Well,
on
there may not
the,
be a second.
Just a
Kirk wants to say-
question, if, whatever you do with this motion, I think when you say study it, I think you need to clarify if study it, staff would be the administrative approval of that, or if you want them to come back to this board, have their site plan basically come back to this board for that study to be presented to you.
I think that that's a good recommendation. I would just say
So-
study it and report to staff, and if you're satisfied, then
Just
that's fine.
making
That's all.
sure that it's clear.
I second the motion.
I'm sorry, now I'm confused now. Okay. We have a motion
A second.
and a second, and we have an amendment to the motion.
She offered as a friendly amendment. I
A
didn't.
friendly
accept it.
amendment, okay. And, okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, please signify by
Can
raising.
we just clarify what the amendment is? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is we condition it on a study to be reported back to staff.
Correct.
And then staff decides if any changes need to be made. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's in the.
Correct.
motion. Yeah.
Okay.
That's part of that. That's the condition.
Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay, I call for a vote. Everybody in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Green brick would look good with the green around the.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the sketch plan for Grove on Broad River. And if staff would like to give us a presentation.
Sure, let's first start that, let them clear out. But as per your code changes that you approved and that were approved essentially enacted in August of this year. The site plan that you just heard and the sketch plan both now have a 500-foot basically notice area. And so that's a little bit of a difference. I think I just want to make everybody aware of that. But also with the sketch plan changes, the sketch plan is now a non-binding conceptual level approval. So there is no conditional approval on this, so everything would be a recommendation. The recommendation would then be, the expectation is that they would hear your recommendation, obviously, and or give you reasons why they didn't when they go to the major subdivision and or site plan, which will both process. So their next step from this, so this is conceptual. You look at everything conceptually, you give recommendations, then they go to that, basically what you just heard, where every detail is kind of thought about. You know, they have to justify those recommendations. So I just want to set that up. This is not vested again, so just, you know, again, and it's basically good for 2 years. So hopefully that makes sense. And the reason that we're at a sketch plan level for this is because they're essentially building a private street or a major street onto Paris Island Gateway that would serve 2 big projects. So the major subdivision process kind of allows a sketch plan for any major subdivision, which would be a preliminary and final plat. Site plans, which is often an apartment complex, often wouldn't need to do a sketch plan, but in this case, they are building a street to serve a larger community than their own, if that makes some sense. So that's a trigger for the sketch plan in our code. So just want to make sure everybody understood that and mention that in the beginning. So with that, this is, you know, located here on the screen. It's in kind of the blue. It's north of the Cross Creek Apartments, due north, but it's off of Broad River Boulevard. And it is zone T4N, so that kind of lighter blue is T4N, and the hatched gray, which is not the best color in the world, but it's T5, UC, and RMX. So those are the city zoning districts. So you can see how the Cross Creek Apartments, the Walmart, the you know, the whole the Academy Sports, the whole shopping center there are all T5 UC, and pretty much everything in the city around it is T5 UC, which is and RMX, which is a very dense urban / suburban commercial mixed use district. So the county is everything in the kind of the orange and the yellow. The county has this in kind of they have a really interesting acronyms. So like I think the orange is, I believe, CN. Libby, you can correct me, C3NMU, I think, right? Is that correct? Which is also kind of a regional mixed use district. So, you know, it's kind of similar there in regional mixed use districts that have slightly different densities and requirements in the county. But so you can kind of see the white here on the screen is in the city. Oops, I didn't mean to, sorry about that. And the color is in the county, whereas in the previous one, all the color is in the city. Floodplain, this is well above floodplain. So you can see that we don't have to really worry about this here, floodplain issues on this project. General location, I think we've kind of all got an idea, but it's kind of, I guess, in between 2 major thoroughfares. So the Broad River Boulevard and then Paris Island Gateway, which they will essentially access with that additional street. Something to note on this is if you see a street that there's Katy Rivers and there's also like an FC Carter, those are all private right-of-ways. They are not platted streets. So that is something to, you know, there is no right of way there. It's a private street. Another thing is there's kind of an interesting offset kind of intersection here at Glaze Drive, that's just kind of across the street. So just so everybody is aware. Also, the Ambrose Run kind of stops at the Cross Creek Apartments. Cross Creek Apartments were not built for whatever reason. I don't know who was here when they were approved, but those are just basically a private parking lot and parking aisles for that apartment complex. They are not streets, or they are not granted any public access easement. So to make a connection to that north section, that northern property. Oops, I'm frozen now. Do you know why it would be frozen? Anybody? No. Well, Nicholas, you probably know how to fix it. Frozen. Little laser thing screwed it up. I mean, I can do it off the. Oh, saw something. No, the computer's so frozen, okay. Yep, hold on, there it went. This file's too big, I think. I have to go slowly. Okay. Here's kind of some pictures of where this is off of Broad River Boulevard, where it has access. You can kind of see that, well, that didn't come out very well, but the Blaze Boulevard kind of with the offset intersection, and you can see the two, there's signage on it, but those two roads and those two access points are not right away, they're private. And as you can see, there's a sidewalk on the other side of the street, but not on the side that they'd be developing on for Broad River Boulevard. So this is the future land use plan. It's pretty scaled back, but it's basically general urban is the district. So we'll go forward. Will let me. So general urban accommodates basically mostly urban residential, some neighborhood commercial and campus-like zoning and uses. So as you can see in that classification category in the land use plan, general urban is T5 DC, IC, and T4N. And so this is zone T4N, if I didn't mention that before. So T4N is, kind of the middle level of our transect, if you will, the urban kind of start of the transect. And, it does allow apartments as a use. Now it's freezing up again. There we go. So here you can see the plat. So it's basically just where this FC Carter Road is. However, if you'll remember last year, I think a similar company to this this owner is proposing development of a similar use to the two large properties to the east in the county that are zoned in the C3 NMU district. So basically they'll be, you have to ask the applicant when they'll be developed, if it's at the same time, but they will share, as you'll see, kind of the major access point and road off of Paris Island Gateway. That's frozen again. Okay, and there's that gate, there's that kind of access point. So, so this is the sketch plan. And as I was referencing before, there's a roundabout and basically, as per the traffic impact analysis, it's right in, right out only on Paris Island Gateway for those two complexes. So again, the one is in the county. You can't really comment on that, but I think you can see the two access points. So sketch plans, you've changed the code quite dramatically, and we'll go through because I think the applicants have done a really good job of sharing each one of the requirements, and we'll go through each one of their kind of portions of that. But you can see the overall layout here. I think we've had a number of meetings with them over the last year, and I think they've done a really excellent job redesigning this site, and we'll kind of show what it looked like before. But conceptual level, there was a lot of things to work out with this site. And, the tree canopy ordinance has changed this dramatically, as we'll see when we get to the old plan. They've lost a lot of density by saving a lot of the trees that you can see on the northwest corridor and kind of around the site. The buffer area, we required the buffer. That's kind of that red line up on Broad River Boulevard. So we required a buffer now on Broad River Boulevard. The previous plan had buildings fronting per code on Broad River Boulevard. So I think that's a real improvement on the design. And so I'm just trying, and all of the streets now have sidewalks. They've all been designed based on an urban block. That that was a big issue. I think as we that's something the code requires, and that you updated in your code. They've also provided kind of a nice corridor on both sides. And I think on the western side, it's really kind of well treed, but there's kind of a nice corridor from the clubhouse essentially all the way up almost to Broad River Boulevard. And they've done that also on the western side where it kind of goes to that tree save area. So you can see a lot of the amenities, but we'll get into that. But I think the important things to note are, there's been some major changes to this based on your new code that you adopted. But again, you can see the two entry points into this and the street layout. And we'll just get into the rest of it here as I go forward, and I'm sure they can give you a little more information. But one of the major parts of the sketch plan now is, kind of having a preliminary traffic study and showing basically pedestrian ways, but also all the streets. And so they provided this graphic where you can kind of see that maybe sister development kind of in the county, but how they're proposing connectivity to this project and to the other projects. So again, you can kind of see the major, and maybe is better, but you can see their graphic representation is maybe better just to go back to the other slide. So you can see how, there's kind of a major street here, and then the other, kind of in between is where the parking is located. So, that's been a little bit of a struggle, right? With the form-based code is we're trying to have not parking lots that are visible from streets, especially from streets that the public can view. So, I think they've accomplished this with the big street coming in on the south and kind of the major street coming in on the north. And that those areas, you're seeing the buildings, not the parking. So, and those become regular streets. Hopefully that made some sense. So again, I think they've done a really good job with this because our code, is really kind of anticipating a very urban setting. This is not an urban setting. It was zone T4, I think 4 years ago. That project was never vested, but it was, rezoning was approved and annexation was approved with it. So it is T4N, which is this very urban district. So you can kind of see that. And so what you can see on your map, and I think better in your packet is, what those streets are with that connectivity. Open space is also another major portion of your, sketch plan requirement to see that, they're providing enough open space for you. And so you can kind of see those corridors that I was talking about, those, I guess, view sheds, view corridors, if you want to state that. And then kind of a lot of that green tree save area. And then, the walking trail that they're putting around the kind of the perimeter and over to the amenity center as well. So you can kind of see a lot of that on this screen. So, and you can also see the hatched out, 30-foot buffer area for Broad River Boulevard. And then, obviously the other pedestrian ways, but we'll just go. It's frozen again. There we go. Okay, so just another thing is the pedestrian plan that you're looking at with their sketch plan. So I think I kind of talked about that, but you can see they have a pretty good trail corridor going around this site as well. As referenced, we're now requiring 30% of a site to basically, if it's in a 30% of the tree canopy to be saved. So they've done a lot of work on this, as you can see. So they're, these slides show the existing tree canopy, and then as we move forward, what's being saved. And they've tried to essentially incorporate as many of the specimen and landmark trees as possible into the request. And so you're seeing that on these conceptual plans and fitting it into their project as well. So, it'll make what's a very dense project, I think, more Beaufort-esque, I think, with the trees, saving those existing trees. So, I think it gives it kind of that more natural, less urban feel. So it's kind of a mix of the two worlds, I think. Move on. Will let me. There we go. So they've done a perspective of the overall development, what it'll look like, kind of coming from the, this is coming from the Paris Island Gateway side with the pool, the amenity center, and how that's basically just a street with a mixed use, pathway on the right there. Well, And then they provided some perspectives of what this would look like and what those corridors would look like. Another thing that you're requesting is some like, elevation, some, in the sketch plan, it was to kind of give a, just a overall feel of what the development's going to look like. So until you commit and kind of give them a feel. So I mean, really, the sketch plan process is for their benefit as much as to your benefit and the citizens' benefit. So I think everybody's kind of on the same page before they kind of go with really serious designing, but I think they already did that, as you can see. So they went kind of the next step. And then they provided elevations for 3 different types, which I can get into. So there's 3 types of building that have been kind of, so there's a first type, which is the most common type, which is I think the 1-bedroom apartment. I think there's a little over 100 of them that's in the packet there. And then you have a 2-bedroom type, which is elevation 2, and then a 3-bedroom type, which is elevation 3. And so let me go back to this if I can. One thing that we've been kind of trying to change the code on and that we're in the process of, but they heard and did themselves is to, if I can get back to it, since this is so slow, sorry about that. Maybe I should just not have done this. Okay. Is that these unit types are sprinkled throughout, so you can kind of, if you can see probably on your screen better than maybe on the screen above, but they're kind of, they're not right next to each other. So that monotony of design. So the 3 types of buildings are kind of separated out throughout the development. So it gives it kind of a, it doesn't look so monotonous, so monolithic, I guess, if you will, for the developments. That's something that we were trying to do in the new code changes, but I think they've incorporated into their design. Some other things with their design that you can see on some of the pictures is they've got entryways on each of the units. So you can kind of see that, those 1-bedrooms, which are, basically have 6 entryways on the first floor. So each one has an entryway, same with the 2-bedroom and the 3-bedroom. And that's maybe better seen here on the perspective. So, so that's something that our code kind of requires per the design prescriptive requirements of the form-based code in chapter 4. So I think they've met that really well as well. And so you can see so this was already after about a half a year of work, we've come a long way, I think, on the site plan. So you can kind of see how there's been some improvements and just a dramatic reduction of density because of the tree canopy requirements that have been made to the project. And also, your buffer area along kind of the major corridors. So we no longer have buildings fronting up against those corridors that could be expanded. Obviously, since the county and us have both zoned these areas as high density areas, they're probably eventually these roads are going to need to be expanded. And so, now you have a pretty sizable buffer area that the roads could be expanded instead of a building. And so I think that you can see how this has changed the development. And so it's now a little more tucked back in to the street instead of kind of this kind of very block form with the buildings kind of forced to be up against a major corridor that maybe that didn't make a lot of sense. So with that, this is a little different. Again, it's a non-binding approval. And so you see in your packet, there's some recommendations. A lot of those recommendations are similar, I think, to what you were talking about before. But they're more road, and I'll get into those. But there is basically a finding that you have to meet for this, but you're not vesting this finding. So, and so anything you do is a recommendation. But A, that it conforms with the zoning district comprehensive plan and furthers the goals and policy of the comprehensive plan. They're all A, I'm sorry. B, 2, that it's consistent with the rationale and criteria set forth in basically the section 7.5.3, that all of those things, the open space, the pedestrian, the road network, the design that you're basically asking for. So you have some good information before everybody spends a lot of money and makes a big decision. So have they met all that? 3, the preliminary traffic, open space, park, utility, and pedestrian design is adequate and functional given the plan capacities of each system. So that's, I think, where most of our all of our recommendations are really focused on, and for the conceptual design and massing is consistent with the requirements of the development code. And I think I've gone over most of those. But the recommendations you have in your packet, are, I think, really mostly related to transportation and utilities. One major thing I think is we're moving forward, especially for this area, for you to decide as this moves forward, is we have essentially a lack of sewer capacity in this area. It has been on the schedule for many years. You have changed the code to require there to be adequate infrastructure for site plans or for essentially the final plat or to be existing. I think one thing for you to think about is, they provided a letter with Beaufort Jasper stating that it's going to be again on their construction schedule. It's been on the construction schedule for many years, but the regional lift stations needed, hasn't been built. Staff thinks you can go 2 ways. You can actually require an agreement with the developer to build this, or with Beaufort Jasper to build it, or you could condition this when it goes to site plan approval. And I think it's important to tell staff and the applicant now before, so they can prepare. If you condition the site plan approval with that, they can move forward. The drawback is you've shortened the period of time that is vested to 3 years. And so they need to know that. So it used to be 8 years. And so we have a lot of projects around this project that have been approved by the DRB or the MPC and, 5, 6, 7 years ago that are sitting, waiting for this regional lift station to be built. And so, if you move forward, if you're okay with doing a conditional site plan approval, since this is just a recommendation, we can move this forward next month or the following month when they're ready, with that condition on their site plan that they know, hey, they got 3 years to vest this project. And in those 3 years, that lift station has to be constructed. And the site plan isn't really valid until that condition is met. So you can go that way, or you can require the agreement, but I think it would just be good for us with a lot of these. We got a lot of projects in this area to kind of know which one you would prefer. I think either one legally, from talking to our attorney, is fine. But that's per code. The traffic really issues, I think, are related to, the offset intersection of Glaze Drive is, a little awkward. They're not lining up to Glaze Drive. I can go back to that. Maybe. Just, that should there be some further study of that? Really kind of making, to your point with the school, I guess a related point to that is should the terminus or like the end of each one of those blocks, basically to the west and, to the east, there's detention ponds. I understand that that's because the other project's going to be in the county. Those are really where all the drainage is going to go. We've definitely made those comments before, but, should those streets to the west basically have stubs? So there's just one stub right now. So that would be basically if the project to the west ever develops, that it could connect to this urban street pattern. It doesn't mean they have to build the stub because, at a certain period of time, the stub would break down. So that's not a good idea for them, but that that an easement would be platted for future connectivity to the west, should that ever annex in, or if the county ever develops that either, if it doesn't annex in.
Kurt,
Yes.
could you show us on this picture where this intersection at Glades Drive is? Where is it?
It's at the very top. It's kind of hard to see on this.
It's the top center. I think you can just see glazed.
That's a little better. This is
Okay,
the
so it's the top center. That's what you're talking about.
top, yeah, very
Okay.
top. So it's the,
And is there any access, some of the pictures that look like there was some kind of road going off.
Yeah, so
maybe
that's
to nowhere.
that's
in the-
another recommendation that we had is that you can see the gray kind of road that would connect over to the, I guess, sister apartment. There's like a triangular piece of properties to fully kind of have that align with Glaze Drive is a piece of property that the developer does not own. But I think staff would recommend basically moving that drive to the south So it'd be fully incorporated on their property and it could connect to the property to the east. There's no reason not to do that at the sketch plan phase. And it's not, they're not proposing it connected to Glaze Drive to create that offset intersection that, you know, their access point is to the furthest to the west, the blue kind of access point there.
Was there potential access in the lower left corner of the property? I thought on some of the pictures, it looked like there was some kind of road or alley or something going off.
Yeah, so that's a private street, and so it doesn't have any easement or right of way granted towards it. But I think you can see where the one stub out is here, that little tiny blue. So I think what staff's recommending is for each one of the ends of those streets that you can see, kind of have a little stub that they could be a future right of way or easement, just an easement granted. So should someone develop to the west, they could connect to it. To the south, you know, you got Cross Creek Apartments that I think here, we'll just go, I'm sorry, this takes so long because of the.
So we'll go back to that picture a minute, the
Oh,
one you just had up. That one. What is on the lower left corner there? What is that little piece that's going diagonally?
So that's a proposed, you know, potential connection to the south. Now, let me just go to the,
No, it's a turn.
and so let me just go, but the problem being is that as you can see, there's no way for them to connect to the south ever because you know, there you go, that's better. Because the whole southern section is an existing apartment complex that doesn't have streets.
So there wouldn't be any connection between the two apartment complexes.
Well, that's not between Cross Creek, but there is connection between the one in the county, which again, that's a future project that I guess they're building this road to serve both. And maybe the northern connection that we were showing you would connect to them as well. But the southern connection is impossible because it's an existing apartment complex that's got a buffer area and it doesn't have public access easement or streets.
Can we
So-
just talk about that a little bit more? I mean, we say it's impossible, but just looking at, I mean, there's going to be 200 units just on the city property that people might want to go to Cross Creek Shopping Center. And without, I mean, trying for some sort of, at least, again, the Ped Bike facility coming through Cross Creek, they're going to have to go out to, you know, again, go around their elbow to get to the foot kind of thing. So
Yeah, I was referring to
Yeah.
roads, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely an
Yeah, no,
excellent.
I know the road thing is, I
Point.
mean, ideal, but just at a minimum, I'm trying to do something there to, you know, a common sense, something. I mean, it's a big challenge, I'm sure, but still for that. Sort of the other issue, I guess, about the connection to the county property, it seems that we really need to look at that, I mean, closely, because to me, the circulation on the city site, these 200 units, unless that county piece gets developed or platted simultaneously, those 200 units are going to go in and out on Broad River Boulevard with the Glaze Drive, the offset that's already been mentioned as being not, you know, ideal. So
Yeah.
this has to go, to me, it has to go together. And-
So I guess that's one of the recommendations is that we really need you know, this again is a sketch plan, right?
Yeah.
And so we really need the final documents for that roundabout in that street with this request, since it's an offsite improvement essentially to this property. And otherwise, you know, with just one way in and one way out, you know, I think that's a concern.
That roundabout part of the county
It would be part of the county property.
project, is there a project planned in that?
Yes, so I think you can ask the applicant, there's a project, I think, under consideration in the county for apartments there as well.
But it's like a different owner and the county, it's in
I would-
county Jersey.
I would ask the applicant, but from what I understand, it's a sister project to this
Okay.
project.
But the traffic circle doesn't belong to, who traffic circle belong to? The project?
It would be a road that would be a public access easement. That would be a privately built road that would serve both projects
Privately owned, privately built, by whom?
by the developer. Well, that's the question that has to be, I think, resolved is,
And so the road at issue, that causes us to be, reviewing this sketch plan what road are we talking about? Are we talking about that roundabout on somebody else's property, or are we talking about something that's within this parcel?
That's right. We're talking about the roundabout on the property to the east. That's right. It's a private road that, may be building.
The way that our code. Subdivisions don't. You don't have a subdivision plan, right? Well, but our code, that's what we do, and that's what we've done in the past, and we. So. I've seen some of these when. Before where they considered. Road was a road, and that's why they call them sketch plan, and that's why they require a preliminary plat, and that's why they require a final plat.
Well, that's why I was asking the question. Is the road that we're approving, is it just that roundabout and the little,
No, everything.
You're approving everything.
well, the sketch plan?
I think the sketch, we're considering. Part of the subdivision process because of the streets that are in the subdivision.
Okay,
Now, I think the big issue that we're gonna have to discuss is the fact that. Because that's a separate application that goes before the county planning commission, if they never approved it, it looks like we just have one access off of Broad River Boulevard, right?
Well, I think you've got two options, you're at the sketch plan, so you can give them a recommendation, but you can require them to basically build this as part of your site plan. I
I
mean,
understand that. I'm just saying right
Build
now,
traffic circles or the.
yeah, I mean, you could require an off-site improvement, sure, to support,
But-
or they could build it as part of their county, as part of this process, could be a requirement.
Why don't we get to the applicant?
And again, the reason for the private road is because, the South Carolina is different, right? And most of the streets are owned by the state and the city does not really own or maintain any streets. And so this creates some challenges, as you can see, and we don't really have the funding to build streets. And so, we're putting it on the private developer to kind of, fulfill that request. So
let's
I think
get
I went
to it.
over all the recommendations, so I'll give it to them and they can kind of.
Let's get to a discussion with the applicant and then we can come back to this a little bit. Thank you, Kurt. And thank you and your staff for all the work that you've done on this. And I want to
right,
thank the applicant for this very
correct.
thorough presentation that you've given us. This is very good. We really do appreciate it. So now I'm gonna ask the applicant if you'd like to come forward and make your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name's Eric Walzinovich. I'm
Can you say that again?
Eric, E-R-I-C.
I got that
Oh.
part.
Spelled that. Walzinovich, W-A-L-S-N-O-V-I-C-H. See, I got some competition up there. We're Wooden Partners, land planners, landscape architects. We've been in the area for 38 years. I'm a principal with the firm and we thank the staff as well for all their input and all their help to move this thing forward to get us to where we are. It's been well over a year since we've started the project. And I want to just quickly address some of the comments that you're all talking about on the sketch plan. Let me see if I can get the laser pointer going here. Yeah. So I'll start with the easy one. This stub out down here in the lower corner, that's actually just a emergency vehicle turnaround. No proposed connection to Cross Creek Apartments there. That's just a service lane to get to the parking. We do have, or we are showing a future connection right here that would hopefully get down to Ambrose Run, which is the entry road to Cross Creek Apartments. And from what I understand, more apartments that are going further west. So we thought that was the best location for a connection point there with not just vehicular, but pedestrian. The roundabout, our owner is the owner of the county property who's here tonight, and he could speak to that if need to. But we are working in concert together on this, looking at both properties at the same time, make sure they work together, not just vehicularly, but again, pedestrian. They're two totally separate entity projects. They'll have their own building types. The county has different building codes than the city. They'll have their own amenity centers. but they will share access and they will share connectivity. Uh, We do have a final TIA report that was conducted by the county. That was a joint effort and review with the city as well as SCDOT. So a lot of the comments we feel are addressed and approved in that, especially up here at Glaze Drive. You know, Glaze Drive comes in at this very awkward angle to Broad River, which that probably wouldn't even pass for SCDOT compliance today. And then we have this connection here, which is the existing curb cut for FC Carter Drive. And our separations meet SCDOT standards for this roadway. The shared access, it will be an easement across the neighboring property owned by our client. And that is a full in and out access onto Paris Island Gateway, as well as the one for Broad River Boulevard. Broad River Boulevard entrance exit, we consider that more of the back door or the secondary. And if you review the TIA, I think you'll see that more traffic will be going out to Paris Island than Broad River. But it's approved based on this sketch plan, this land plan for full traffic movements. Let's see. In the recommendations, they talked about the Beaufort Jasper agreement, which we've been working with Beaufort Jasper for well over a year on this property, as well as the neighboring property. And they're fully aware of the number of apartments that we're proposing. Actually, more so. A year ago, we told them 600 units. And as you see, where this is only proposed for 204. And the neighboring property will be very similar. So they're fully aware of the project. We do have a letter of intent. We certainly understand the city's position that we want to make sure that we can't open to the public until they have someplace for sewer to go to. We certainly understand that. We want to do our best to try to get to a shovel-ready project and be vested. So when that time comes, we can also get our COs to begin allowing residents to move in, become citizens of the city, start to contribute to the economic viability of the city as both workforce and shoppers. I think Kurt did a great job presenting. The other recommendations, to talk a little bit about, and let me see if I can get to that freezing things up. The Katy Rivers Road, not moving. Anyways, the existing Katy Rivers Road, which is actually just off of our site, all the way along the top of the property. It's an existing street, it's an existing road, so it's already cleared, it's already relatively graded. One of the recommendations was to move that south onto our property. We see a few issues with that. One with the tree canopy, there's some really nice oaks up there. And then there looks to be, the topography really sinks down in that whole corner up there, which is why our stormwater is over there. It looks to be like an old borrow pit or something. So there'll be a little bit difficulty getting that through there, just mainly for the tree canopy sake. So we propose to connect in a future connection back over to the property on to the east. The roundabout will share access both to the east and the west, which we covered. I think if you were, I'm all frozen up, but there was an aerial image map that showed the existing tree canopy. And it showed up on the shading plan as well in the green shade where it shows the existing canopy. If you study the clearing, the natural cleared areas of that plan, and you can see it coming down kind of the middle of the site, all the topography naturally drains to the east and to the south. And then there's a little bit of a clearing that cuts across to where the existing house was. And then FC Carter takes you up the Broad River. Our development pattern kind of follows that same process. Again, trying to get to save as many of the tree canopies as possibly can. And we want to save them in clusters in larger areas, not just, single specimens here and there. Let's see. The street stub outs, we position those to save trees. There's some specimen trees right at the terminus of that main road that comes into the site, moving from east to west from the roundabout. Terminus is right on a nice size specimen tree. There's some other tree saves and we know we're gonna have some sort of curb and gutter on that side. But we're more than welcome to welcome any options or recommendations or study that a little bit further. I think that's it and I'll be happy to hear more comments or recommendations.
I just have a question. The roundabout there. So you've got 204 units that you're wanting to build on the piece that we're looking at today. Then the neighboring property on which the roundabout actually will be, said similar size, so I guess another couple hundred units. And then potential additional connectivity to the roundabout to Ambrose Run. So you're talking about hundreds of vehicles potentially using this kind of not very long access to Paris Island Gateway. Does there need to be some kind of traffic control device there at some point, like now, maybe? Or, or
Well,
is there-
based on the traffic impact analysis, no. The county does their own thing. It's a joint effort with the city and SCDOT. Their findings came back that it would, no traffic light would be required. And I think that has largely to do with the interconnectivity to both Broad River and Paris Island, as well as both developments.
And would there be, I don't see them on here, but would there be some kind of access lanes along the side of Paris Island Gateway? I mean, that's a pretty busy street now.
That were recommended by traffic impact analysis.
Okay.
And the side of Broad River Boulevard up there, that's a two-lane highway up there.
It's divided, well, there's what we call a suicide lane down the middle, and then 2 lanes on each side. I don't really know, we haven't heard anything from the county that they're planning for anything, improvements, such as they are in Robert Smalls, but, yeah, I'm not sure if they're planning on putting it on a diet or, certainly no recommendations for T-cell land.
He really only has 2 accesses coming and going off of Broad River and this potential traffic circle down here to the right.
Correct.
Well, until we get to the traffic circle, there's only one.
Yeah, until we get to,
Okay.
if we ever get to traffic, there's one.
And you do understand that because it's a sketch plan, I'm sure staff has told you this, but you're only going to get recommendations from us today. And then hopefully you will be able to complete those recommendations before you come back.
Yes,
For both design as well as all these other water, sewer issues and so on and so forth. Yeah. Okay.
Isn't there on the county property, isn't there another access point further north on Paris Island Gateway?
yes.
So there'll be
There's actually 2 other.
two. is
There's a
there-
right in, right out at the NTB, on Paris Island Gateway, if you know where that is. And then there's a full access on Broad River Boulevard at the very north end.
But all that being said, I mean, I think that's why it's so important that these pieces are looked at jointly and that any planning that's done be done simultaneously. That we even may be on the same plat if both entities
I think,
approve it and then it could be recorded. The
I
question
think
I have.
I think we're relatively paralleling the development and design phases on both properties. We just submitted for conceptual SRT with the county. So we have to make some plan adjustments to resubmit and then go to DRB for that project.
But to their defense, the reason why this is taking so long is because they've been going through this joint process with the county on engineering to look at both things. So I think we just got the final plan like a week ago or something, so apologize on that. But so we have been coordinating with the county engineering department and us before we brought it here.
Right.
So and that took a long time because they took new counts on the road as well, so they weren't using the old counts, so, yeah.
So,
With the access, or the streets, are they going to be actually platted as streets or access easements? When we get down to the plat, is it gonna show a platted right of way, or is it just going to show an easement?
I don't even imagine it would show that. I would think they just have
A right of way?
a crossover agreement throughout the whole development. That's the way I would prepare it. Just a general crossover.
Yeah, we
agreement.
see it as a platted shared access
Yeah.
easement where the roundabout is across the county property to get to this property.
A right of way would imply the public would be taking it, and which I don't think the public, not sure about the county, but I don't think the city has the desire to take it as a road.
I was just saying the smart way to do that,
Don't
is
have
you
any
just
maintenance.
file a general crossover agreement over the entire thing so that allows anybody coming and going to drive over any part of the road that's actually shown. Then you don't have to plat them as actual easements because there's no benefit in doing that. But they can do it however they want, but that's. not what
I
we
thought some of the previous apartment complexes that the city approved showed, guess we'd have to look at the GIS, but that showed actual right of ways. And maybe it doesn't
they
really
wouldn't.
matter, but
No reason, we're gonna approve a site plan eventually and a subdivision plan, and they're gonna show these roads and they're gonna build these roads. So as long as they have a general,
Yeah, if I go back.
access, condition
Ah, yeah, there it is.
over the whole
some sort of
thing.
legal access.
Legal access allows, wherever there's a point of access, somebody can come in and they can go out the other way and they can drive through any of the streets because the agreement says they can.
Gotcha,
But
okay.
you wouldn't want to plat those all because it just takes a lot more effort.
Ms. Anderson, I wasn't here for this, but I think at the MPC, and I think it went to the DRB, so Benji might have been, or Kim. I'm
The
not sure.
Marguerite.
The Ambrose Run to the south, that basically the developer is Watercress was going to build that entire connection of Ambrose Run as a private easement. They wanted to gate it actually, so said no, but they had it as a public, access easement, but it is a private street. It's not a public street.
Amber's Run, the plan was to connect that to the shopping center at some point. That was one of the projects we reviewed.
That was the Watercress project again, and they were coming all the way over and then also connecting to Broad River Boulevard. But that was all a private street, just like this. It wasn't a right of way, just so you know, just because they're in kind of a similar situation. They're waiting on a regional lift station and so building a street, so.
We go back to, one of maybe the site plan or the sketch plan that shows the layout, because I did have a question about, like, oh yeah, good. Is one connection over to this adjoining property enough? Couldn't we, I was wondering about, I know it's shown as pedestrian only, but a connection between is it 6 and 7 there, or of 6 and 10? Or going all the way up and doing what was mentioned in the staff report, is it the Katy River Road? Yeah. It just seems, I mean, ideally, trying to create more of a grid, but at a minimum, one of those connections to try to create more of a neighborhood. Really, we're talking about 500 units. This is larger. It's like our Vision Point, the downtown. This is huge, really, in terms of the number of units. And so it just seems we should be trying to
During our
do a little bit more
planning,
connectivity.
we certainly hear you,
Yeah.
Ms. Libby. Yeah, this is why we proposed this connection here, because it already kind of exists as a road to tie into this other development that we're working on. These are all specimen trees in these dark blue, which are counties kind of requiring us to hold on to those, as well as stormwater needs to occur here because there's a preserved wetland here. So our land area to make those connections is limited to this cross, and actually you can duck down below these specimen trees here. But to Katy Rivers Road does already do this kind of movement onto this property. It shows up on that aerial piece.
Heard at our work session we had a couple months ago, we started talking about when we started, when we're looking at these things, we need to be looking at master planning in that area. And I think that's what everybody's getting at. Can we have the surrounding developments published for us so that we can start to take a look at those in concert with
Connectivity.
what's going on here?
So you would like, I guess when this comes forward for the next round, you'd like all the other
Yeah,
apartments that you've
yes.
approved? Okay.
Or even if you have one, just give them to us ahead of time so we can look at them.
If you superimpose this plan on anything that's approved or pending and then label.
Well,
you know,
that'd be
streets,
good
'cause
too.
We've got some aerials, but you can't quite tell what everything is, but superimpose the plan on an aerial, and then if it's not easily identifiable what the connectivity is, label it somehow.
Yeah, I know the owner is doing that already, obviously from the conversation, but we need to look at that. We need to see what's
Yeah.
going on.
Have any of the emergency services had a chance to take a look at this road overlay going into this property? As far as access for fire trucks, ambulance, one way in, one way out?
We're not to that point yet. The only thing we have is the traffic impact analysis from engineering, traffic engineering.
Yeah, well.
Let me just ask
Traffic and-
about the traffic impact thing, and first I'll just say this, y'all did a marvelous job in putting this together. If we were at the preliminary plat stage, it's really better submission than I think I've ever seen. So that's it.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
On the traffic impact study, now you did it for the whole combined development,
Yes.
and so the levels of service and stuff were computed based on the totality, so. Now, there are two grades there that go below our standard of D, level of service D. And revising the code, and we just went through the traffic impact study stuff, and we did not change the requirement that projects try to meet the goal of a level of service D. There are two grades in the PM peak hour 2030 build condition. One is an E and one's an F. Now, I don't know how critical they are. One's at Horton Drive and the other is at Paris Island at Horton Drive, and the other is Broad River at Alston Drive. And I just wanted to see if you or anybody here want to address those as to why we shouldn't be concerned about those levels of service, E and F.
I'm looking at my civil. Yeah, I can't,
They know an answer, but I want to just see what you.
yeah, I can't speak to that. I don't know. All I know is, through reading through the report from the TIA. They've given approvals to all our traffic movements and access points based on the density that we're providing.
So, I think the answer is, but when you come back with the preliminary submission, you just need to think about it and have a good answer for me. But I think because you're measuring the level of service on the intersecting street and not the main thoroughfare, sometimes that just happens.
Right, yeah.
But because our code says we have this, it says goal, but it says a level of service D, which is, I don't know that it's that high, but that's just the way the code wrote is written. I think you need to address that and just be prepared to say why we shouldn't be concerned about that.
Okay.
Okay. That's, and then in the future, when you come here, just be aware of the level of service D.
Yeah.
Just point it out, because I can't ignore it just because it's there
Sure.
unless you have a good answer about it.
Sure, and maybe we'll just have a powwow with the traffic engineering and county and get answers to those.
Yeah. The other thing I would just say is that probably where we're coming from on this connectivity stuff is that you're gonna have to figure something out. I don't know the answer today about, which comes first, chicken or the egg? I mean, do we wait for the county to approve theirs so that we know that connection is there? Or does somehow you incorporate that piece of the property in this one? I think that if this one goes first, somehow there has to be, some of that property has to somehow be incorporated in this so that we know there's the two connections. unless you can convince us that if that never got approved, that the 200 units coming out here on Broad River Boulevard is gonna work just fine, you know? So, but I'll just leave that to you to think about all that, right?
I'm gonna ask Edmund, he's our owner and developer.
Okay.
You know, we talked about it, this easement access being platted. And he's the owner of both properties. Maybe he can speak to that better than I can on timing and whether we just go ahead and get it done now is what I'm hearing. To get the,
Provide the access, even if you don't get
it platted.
approval done in advance, yeah.
Hey, Edmund Waddell with Charleston Creek Capital. We're the applicant and owner on both parcels, different, separate entities. There's no desire. Matter of fact, I'm gonna look to Shelley, our project architect. There's no desire for us to only have one access point on Broad River for this project. Nor is there a desire on the other project to only have one means of going out onto Paris Island Gateway. And matter of fact, I think legally, once you go over the 200 unit count threshold, you have to have two means of egress
Yeah.
and ingress to the site. It's a life safety requirement. Is that correct, Kurt? So whichever project goes first, a condition of that roundabout and that road going in needs to be required.
Yeah, we probably, you know, sort of like the utilities, the sewer thing as well, have to be conditioned on probably not getting a construction plan approval and building permit until you have that platted access, you know? And in the case of the utilities, until you were able to demonstrate that you got some kind of agreement with the Jasper Sewer and Water where they're gonna upgrade that pump station or that you're gonna pay for it and make sure that it's upgraded that way, you know, but we'll leave that up to you guys to figure out how you're gonna come back to us with that, and maybe the way you propose it will be satisfactory.
Excuse me, sir, before you sit down, I have one more question for you. What, at the outset of this presentation, Kurt, you know, reminded us of some of our new code provisions and how they impact our work here tonight. In light of the timeframes that might kick in, depending on what we do, what is your preference as to what we do? You know, where do you want us to put the conditions in? At this phase or wait till later? What?
But we don't have,
We can't
we don't vote on anything tonight.
Well, Kurt said that he wanted us to let them know tonight about this exact thing.
So utilities are another of the four kind of main points for the sketch plan, but I think the way the site plan now is written, it says you have to show that the site, you know, has adequate utilities to serve the project before it can be approved. It's a requirement of the site plan. So, you know, there's two ways to go about this. Either there's an agreement that they build the Lee Regional Lift Station with Beaufort Jasper, which we don't have, or you condition, as Bill was saying, you condition the site plan approval, and so you don't allow site work or any building to happen until there's utilities. So one of the two would need to happen. And so I think, you know, it would be quicker for the applicants, because there's other projects that have backed up because of this, to put the condition on them, then they can get an approval. The problem is the clock of 3 years starts for the vesting, right? Once when that happens. So anyway.
There's a concern there that once that clock starts and the lift station doesn't come online, that we would lose our approval.
Well, you'd have 3 years. So if you don't think you can get it handled with Beaufort Jasper in 3 years, which, you know, then you'd have to come back and get another site plan approval. You know, I mean, it might be easy since you got it approved, you know, 3 years
I think
ago.
our preference
then-
would be to have site plan approval so that we're ready to go once Beaufort Jasper builds their upgrades to their.
So you'd go through this whole process, and it basically would be, once when you built the lift station, then we could allow you to start building. That's what we're saying. But if,
Development permit, land development.
that's right, but the other way, you'd have to come up with an agreement, which might be difficult, right? And so Does that make sense to everybody? So the
Yeah.
condition would be a quicker way to go about it.
Usually we have these, you probably have these sunsets on these plans for a number of reasons, but one is because otherwise a developer can get a site plan approval and then, it's kind of a placeholder. You've reserved all that traffic capacity for a project that may never come to pass, and somebody else, is ready to get moving, and they've got all their utilities, and when they do their traffic impact study, it's like, well, it would work, but for this project that's just sitting on the shelf, And so we like to make sure that things get moved forward, because it's fair to everybody else, because there's a limited amount of infrastructure out there. And so, if we grant an approval, we want to be pretty darn sure that it's going to go forward, so it isn't just holding onto, its capacity, infrastructure capacity, and then never uses it.
We've got too many stuck in the mud now.
Yeah,
We don't need any more of that.
yeah,
We need to know that we're approving things that are moving forward
yeah.
for both of us.
So I guess what I would say on that is the more that you talk with Buford Jasper and try to work something out, but I'll leave that up to you all. And I would think that if you offered to help them financially with their pump station, they're gonna be a lot more eager than. No, wouldn't you?
There's plenty of fees to be paid. We have 3 ex-employees that work there now, so you'd think we'd have an in, but.
Before we get too finished with this, I think I'd also like to make sure that we give you any of our thoughts as it relates to the architecture of the project as well. And so I'd like to open it up to the board if the board has any comments about architecture on this.
I have one, it's kind of a question. In looking at the site plan and the elevations, it looks like all the buildings are designed to have doors on both sides of them. So that some people would have their door facing a street and other people would have their door facing the parking lot. And first of all, is staff okay with that? And, how set in stone is that?
It's a prescriptive requirement of our form-based code. So yes, yeah, I'm sure they'd rather not do it, but they have to. for code. So I think they've done a pretty good job with what they've submitted.
So is a prescriptive requirement of the code. Are you saying it is okay for doors to be facing the parking lot, or are you saying it is not okay?
Well, I think in this situation, we were kind of explaining, what this has been, I think, some of their design challenges. What is the street? What is the parking lot? And especially for this kind of project. And, the code has all the parking lots are supposed to be rear of the buildings. Well, but they're building a grid. We also want a grid pattern, and they also have to provide enough parking. So I think they've kind of designed a project where you've got a street, then a street, like basically an access that is a parking lot. That's kind of an urban parking lot street. And so I think it serves as a street essentially with just some extra parking. And so, yes, I think that definitely satisfies the code, and I think it's a good compromise, and I think they did a good job with redesigning that. Just because, you can't build a street with enough street parking to meet 204 units of affordable housing. You'd have to have major off-site parking lots kind of dispersed throughout, and I don't know that that's a better design than what I think they've done, probably the best option for design. So hopefully does that make some sense? And again, we don't have an urban setting around here, there's no other streets we allow like 300 feet of shared parking, or, there's no parking garages, there's no other infrastructure. So I don't know what else they could do. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense. I just want to know what your position is,
Yeah.
and I'm hearing that your position is that these parking lots are as good as a street as far as being acceptable under the code, for purpose of having entryways facing them. Is that fair?
That's fair, yes.
Well, what about the parking lot that's up in the right-hand corner, this thing that looks like a stadium?
Yeah, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah,
So I'll let,
okay.
I'll let you,
All
let you
right, so
defend that.
The parking is required to be behind the buildings.
All right,
The parking is required to be behind buildings.
right.
In that area, we have, what, 4 buildings that we're serving for parking. And we're screening that off from the, the streetscape is here as well as here. So these 4 buildings and this building face onto the street per code. And is this the parking lot you're referring to?
One that looks like a stadium.
The one up
Yep.
just above your
That's
Looks like
cursor.
Dodger Stadium, okay? All
Yeah,
right,
so-
that's it right there.
Yeah, the parking, surrounds an open green space in the middle that we're probably going to need for bioretention or infiltration for stormwater. The other, getting back to Ms. McVann's comment on the architecture, you're required by code to elevate the first floor elevation 18 inches off the street. So that's not an ADA access. And then in the rear of the buildings in the breezeway entrance, that's ADA accessible. And that's designed by the form-based code. But everywhere building faces a street, and one of the challenges we had was, given this block or gridded pattern streetscape of this urban requirement, we have some buildings that face 2 streets. So we've gone through a lot of work architecturally to make that work and meet code.
And we had a lot of discussion, and I think it was our last work session, about how you lay these things out with these streets, and I was skeptical that it could be done. I
Yeah.
think we've done and we didn't have your plan at the time. I think you've done a remarkable job convincing me that it can be done, because the rest of the commission was really, they wanted to see this sort of thing. The one anomaly is that parking lot over there in the corner
Yes,
there,
yeah.
but, you have to have parking ultimately, and you
Right.
kind of hide that away, I think, pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Considering the fact so many apartment communities elsewhere, I mean, that's sort of the way they are. You just have these big parking lots all over the place.
Yeah, the garden style apartment complex.
Other
And that's why we
comments?
did these, we do these 3D in-house renderings, not as just as pretty pictures, but we use them as design tools to make sure that we're meeting code. In the upper left, you can see the streetscape, the front end of those buildings and the massing of the trees. And I was kind of laughing to myself when the previous architect said they took the big trees away because they didn't want to block the view to the building. In the renderings, we like to show that we're creating a streetscape that's safe for pedestrians, it slows the traffic, it meets the code of a streetscape thoroughfare. And then these little courtyards that separate the buildings, these public spaces, create this spine or a necklace of jewels that come down from the north to the south. And then crosswalks, and we have elevated tabletop crosswalks, which help slow traffic. So we're working in a lot of these smart growth principles we've been hearing a lot about, and low impact development principles for this project.
Other comments on the architecture part?
On one of the elevations, there was a note on one of the elevations that showed the HVAC units at ground level in front of the apartment. Is there any way of moving them on the roof to get the noise out of there? I mean,
Sure, we can do that with the roof pitch requirements.
but I mean,
Shelley's
It's
here,
not
she's
very
our
comfortable
architect,
to
she may
rent-
be able,
not
I
very
think this would be a great time for her to take over.
not very comfortable to be living next to an HVAC unit out in front of your front door. That's all I'm saying. There's something with it.
I'm Shelley Blakesley, by the way, from Cost Wilson Architects. I'm the project architect.
Could you speak right into the microphone?
I'm Shelley Blakesley from Cost Wilson Architects. I'm the project architect. To answer your question, I mean, I suppose you could put the HVAC on top of the roof, but in this situation, you'd end up with roof wells. And to me, it really would kind of destroy the look that we're going for here. I mean, the plan, I think, was to, to certainly screen the condensers on the ground.
Totally disagreement. That's fine. You're the architect.
Makes us challenging for us landscape architects.
Pardon me? Yeah. Go ahead.
Edmund, do you want units on the roof?
These new trained Mitsubishi units, I've got those on some of my property and you don't even hear them, you can't tell they're running. They're remarkable.
That's the ones that are up on the.
Benji, you had some comments?
Yeah, I'm kind of not sure about the two types of roof that you're showing, but that's just my personal opinion. I might recommend, and maybe it's just me, just doing either shingles, asphalt shingles or metal. And I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that.
I think I was just doing that to sort of break up that roof line. And then I did see some images, you know, and in person throughout Beaufort where they were mixing in some metal roofing with a regular, you know, 25-year architectural shingles.
And that, is that building type 1, where we have the gable, that looks like we have kind of a lot of attic space above that? Is that like a functional space?
It's all attic up there.
It's just all attic up. I'm not sure what the answer is, but kind of maybe it's kind of making that mass bigger than what it is. I don't know if there's a way to simplify it, to maybe just have the gable on 2 sides instead of all 4 sides, just thinking out loud, but
Right, I did have this discussion with Jeremy Tate. And well, one of the suggestions he had was to maybe sort of leave this roof as is, and then as you go to like building type 2, we simplified that roof so that let me see if I can get to it without. Yeah, see, this one is just a simple hip roof.
yeah.
But his suggestion for doing that was so that the majority of the buildings that you see on the site are going to be this 1-bedroom, building type 1 or building type 2. And he thought his suggestion to change that so that as you move through, you know, the site, that everything isn't so matchy, like
Right.
in particular the roof forms.
What are the dimensions of those first floor porches?
They're about 12 to 13 feet wide and about 6 feet deep.
How deep?
About 6 feet,
6, okay.
yes.
Can we do any more than 6? I mean, typically 8.
Yeah, I would do 8 minimum if we could.
So that you can use it.
Right, okay. It's a pretty generous balcony, but I mean, we can certainly look at that.
At least for the first floor,
Yeah,
for the ground floor.
But on.
at least the first
Yeah.
floor.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it reads more as a traditional porch.
I had a couple of comments, I guess. We're really trying to get to a low country vernacular, okay? And so, sometimes it's hard to do with a 3-story building, multiple 3-story buildings. When I look at the clubhouse, I think it's not low country vernacular, but it's not too bad, in my opinion. I think that comes off okay. I'm not sure about the horizontal versus the vertical board and batten, but the roof lines, I think, are interesting, and you have the cupola on the top. I think that you're going back to what Benji was saying, the roof lines on your type 3 and your type 1 buildings are interesting. Your type 2 kind of loses interest in your roof shapes. I should say not lines, but shapes. So, just as a comment, I think the 8-foot balconies do make them much more functional. The only other thing that I'd say, maybe not the only thing, two things, that your entryways, if they could have a little more presence on the architecture in the front, showing that they're entries, and that may be some combination of the roof that you have over the top of them and or their size. But the other thing, and the other thing would be the overhangs that you have on the roof lines. I'm not sure what kind of an overhang you have on the roof lines now.
They're, on the upper, the main body of the roofs, they're all 2 feet.
2 feet.
Right.
2 feet is not bad. Of course, the wider you have them, the more they look consistent with the older architecture around here. And the last thing that I make a comment on is the details. When I look at some of you can't really see the details as much in what you have here right now, but the details appear to be more builder kind of grade. They're not really very dimensional. If the details on your columns and other elements had a little more dimensional quality to them, I think that would certainly help as well.
Okay. What size are the board and batten panels?
So I think they are, it's just a fiber cement panel, and then those are,
Like
maybe
between
1x3.
battens?
Yes, right. I
Then-
think they're at 16 inches on center.
So it'll read more like panels instead of boards?
Not necessarily. I mean, we can change that spacing pretty easily.
Yeah, I might look into that. Maybe. I think doing more the board look might look, because it's kind of like in between either going just panel siding or board and batten. So it's kind of like you're somewhere in the middle. So I'm not 100% sure what it is. Yeah.
I would also just make sure that, when you do come back, so the next stage for you is going to be preliminary plat, and you can bring it with the site plan with your design, because we got two things, we approve the preliminary plan and a site plan. With the site plan, that's when we get into all the building elevations and stuff. And sometimes what happens is, you'll have one of these plan types like you have on the screen here, and it doesn't really match with these pretty pictures. It's really important that they do, because this is sort of the thing that people kind of look at. They go, well, that looks nice. And then, you know, the Pierce brick walls go away. And well, we never really intended the Pierce brick walls. Well, that's part of the South Carolina, you know, the Low Country vernacular. So if you're going to show those on here, then make sure that you actually intend to do that. And the same thing with the colors. You know, whatever colors you choose, I think you do have some color keys here, but there are a couple of these pictures that elevations that look a little strange. I can't quite figure out what the colors are. There's a combination of some yellow and some pink and some things. I just make sure that these depictions are actually accurate in terms of what you're doing, because in the end, when we do an approval, you know, we'll hold you to these things so that they look at exactly like you show us.
Okay, and I think the buildings, those are the actual buildings that you see in there. So I didn't draw the pierced walls as part of my work, but I hear what you're saying, and I think the color variation there is just that's the differences in software, I think.
Yeah, that could,
Yeah.
but yeah, that Pierce brick just struck to me. It's like, oh, you know, we see that a lot, but
Yeah.
if we're going to show it, then follow through with it, because we wouldn't want to just all of a sudden it be a four-board horse fence. I mean, it would be a totally different look.
Gotcha.
Plus, that's just, you get the idea.
And I think if you do want to do, you know, the two different roof types, metal and shingle, it kind of reads as the same color on that 3D rendering. And I think it would look better if they are closer in color versus, you know, one's darker and one's lighter, and it'll stand out too much.
Okay.
It'll look like, you just ran out of money, so we couldn't do all metal roof.
That's exactly what happened, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board for the? Seeing none, thank you very much, and I'll open it up to any public comments. And I don't see any public comments, so I'll close public comment. Any last comments that you have for the board?
Well, maybe for the board or for the staff. So, will we get some sort of report back from this meeting or some sort of?
Well, you can get minutes from the meeting.
Okay,
And the meetings are recorded as well.
Perfect.
So you can watch them if you want
okay,
to.
all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we'll just get back with Kurt and his staff on our next steps. And we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good if you made some recommendations, with some formal recommendations to give them.
I think they know what they are.
Okay, okay. You guys are all okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
If they feel they're being left in the lurch, please let us know.
Yeah.
Guys, good to go?
Yeah, I think that our biggest hurdle is Beaver Jasper, really.
Yeah, well, that is one of the big ones. Okay, thank you very much.
And obviously access is critical.
Okay, we'll move forward to discussion on chapters 2 to 4, but I don't think we're really going to get into any discussion. That's going to wind up going to our work session. If that's okay with everybody?
Tell them to know what date that is.
Yes,
Yeah.
the work session, for some reason I wrote down December 8th, which makes some sense because December 1st would be the day after the Thanksgiving Day weekend. And would December 8th work for everyone? Or is that what we set, what we talked about last time? Because for some reason I wrote it down and I didn't see
The
it.
8th works for me.
We're not,
Okay,
not
December
doing it
8th.
on the first.
We're not doing it on the first then.
I was just suggesting the 8th so we have a little more time. Plus,
No problem, no
the
problem.
first is right after the Thanksgiving Day holiday and
You're talking about a work session, so that would be at 1 o'clock?
so which room are they in? No, maybe not then. He actually has the best calendar because he has to he has to be here for the video.
Yeah.
And that's usually in that room downstairs? Okay, what about the Tuesday?
I can't do the Tuesday.
Can't do the Tuesday.
What's wrong with that Monday you said?
There's another meeting in there, unfortunately.
We meet in a different room,
Yeah, we
like
could,
even in here, if nobody's in here?
yeah, we could meet in there.
Or base camp again.
It's true.
Oh,
We have to live stream it.
Oh.
Well, I guess we might have to do the first or do you have anything on the second or the 9th, I guess?
First, is that, is anybody have time?
I have planning commission on the first.
Yeah, the 9th would be difficult, or a different day. If you have a different day, then,
I think we all had it on the first.
okay, we can, I for some reason.
do
wrote
the
down the 8th.
first.
First works. I just have to go to the airport.
Okay, I think it was your comment. I think we talked about it.
And
That's what it sounds like.
first is good for you, Sean?
So the first, we're on.
The first. 1 o'clock?
Okay.
1 o'clock.
That's my trash recycle, so works fine. Okay, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.